Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 17th meeting of the Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners. I would respectfully request anyone who has a cell phone to turn the volume down. I'll start with myself. Or put it on vibrate as not to disturb the meeting. There is a gentleman who has a camera tonight, taking pictures possibly. Just don't disturb anybody with a flash. And could we have a roll call?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. 4 selectmen are present. Mrs. Begley, Mrs. Winslow, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Slavin, as well as the acting town administrator, Mr. Sullivan.
Okay. Announcements?
Announcements. New FEMA flood insurance rate maps effective soon for Plymouth County. There will be a community outreach meeting open house for Plymouth County residents to learn more about these changes. April 19th at the Wareham Town Hall Auditorium, 54 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. from 6:30 to 9 p.m. The Kiwanis Club of Born in Wareham and the Onset Youth Center are teaming up to hold the first annual walkathon for youth. The event will be held on the banks of the Cape Cod Canal starting at the Train Bridge parking lot. The walk will be 4 miles, 2 miles down and 2 miles back on Sunday, June 10th, 2012 from 12 noon to 6 p.m. You can contact the Onset Youth Center for more information. Wareham's Coffee Hour, a chance to have a coffee break and chat with interesting guests. Spinney Library article before town meeting discussion led by Priscilla Porter, Friends of the Wareham Free Library, 9 a.m. Thursday, April 19th, 2012, room 225, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road. The Friends of the Library will be hosting informational sessions on Spinney's town meeting request. Tuesday tonight at 6:30 in the Spinney Library, and Wednesday, April 18th at 6:30 in the Wareham Free Library. The veterans need assistance with Memorial Day preparations. Please contact James Newman at 508-291-3100, extension 6513, or Charles Vanderstay at 508-295-6060. Minot Forest Elementary will host an art show and auction on Thursday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. The school is seeking local artisans to display their artwork and donate pieces for the live auction. Contact Nancy Lennon at 508-291-3555. There'll be a comedy night fundraiser benefiting the middle school PTA. Be held Friday, April 27th at Salerno Seaside Function Hall. The night will feature Mike Dorval, who was described as one of Boston's best by the Boston Globe. Tickets are $25 per person. This is an event for adults who are 21 or older. Please contact Chris at 781-588-8200 or Rhonda at 508-295-7431. WCTV seeks Building and Finance Task Force volunteers. Volunteers interested in serving on either of the temporary committees are asked to contact Board President John White, 508-295-4100. And flushing of town water pipes begins April 23rd. The Wareham Fire District will be flushing district's water mains from Monday, April 23rd until Saturday, June 30th between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. daily. The Water Department will set out signs and use its reverse 911 system to notify customers when they will be in a particular area. Mrs. Begley? Mr. Slavin?
Yeah, one item. Main Street's been under repair for the last few weeks, and the traffic has been routed different ways. It's been a problem for most of the retail stores in the area, and I'd appreciate it if for the residents of Wareham take a little effort and start to shop there. They've been hurt financially with the shutdown, basically. Anything you could do would be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Chair? That is all the announcements for the evening. Would you like to move on to citizens' participation?
Yes?
I forgot to announce town meeting.
Thank you. Claire Smith, Town Moderator. I just wanted to take a moment of your time. In anticipation of town meeting, it came to my attention that there was some confusion in the community relative to overrides versus debt exclusion questions. So last week, with the courtesy of WCTV, they came and taped a public service segment with Town Council, myself, and Mary Ann Silva, our town clerk, and we went through an explanation of what debt exclusion meant and what override means, and the process that it would take going on the ballot, moving forward, and how that all works. I think there are a lot of people who think they are coming to town meeting to vote on a debt exclusion or override question, and that's not the case. So we wanted to make it very clear what the difference was, what was going to be voted at town meeting versus a ballot question. So it should be aired this week several times. It was on TV today. I tried to get a schedule, but didn't get anyone this evening to be able to find that out. But if you just call the station or watch the announcements, you'll see. I think it would be very helpful to people coming into town meeting. Second thing is, if anyone has any handouts for town meeting, they must be approved by the town moderator, and they should get them to me as quickly as possible. The cutoff date actually was last Friday, but if someone has something, I just wanted to remind them they do have to get approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Titlebaum?
Yes. Peter Titlebaum, still your selectman-elect. I just wanted to update you on the legislative process and, I guess, progress, such as it is. Last week, I spoke with the legislative aide to the Joint Committee on Elections Laws, which is where matters like this end up before they make it out into the chambers for a vote. Apparently, the House members of that joint committee have given their concurrence, but they're waiting the Senate to do this. So in that regard, this was information I just received today as to where it is right now. So tomorrow I will contact Senator Pacheco's office and see if he can possibly expedite that process. I'm still hopeful that I'll be approved and sworn in time for town meeting, but I think I have to work the process for the remainder of the week to make sure that happens. So that's where I stand. I don't know if any of you have any questions about it, or
Derek, you had something today, right? You had similar update today.
It was that it was in the exact same committee that he had spoken about. So I can reach out to the office. I reached out to Senator Pacheco's office today, Representative Giffords as well. And first thing in the morning, I can reach out to them again.
In the Senate, right? The issue is in the Senate at
Correct.
this point.
So.
okay. Well, I appreciate that, Derek, and I appreciate that there's more than one voice is calling up there at this point.
Should, as a board, should we send a letter to Teresa? Senate President
I mean,
Murray, and let her know that, as a board, we offered to do this quickly to save ourselves some, and now we have a seat missing on the board. What do you think?
well, I'll be honest. I don't want to put you on the spot as a board. I can certainly handle those communications myself.
Okay.
So, and I will do that. What I can do, I suppose, is email you with the results of the conversations I have tomorrow to keep you in the loop. And then if if it does turn out that I could use a little more of a boost from you up there, then I'll certainly be willing to ask for that. So
Okay.
why don't we leave it that way, Steve?
All right, Pete.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Citizens' participation? Hearing next.
Mr. Holmes, next we have the Westfield discussion.
Right. Update on Westfield. Today, I believe, let me just double check this at the last minute here, that the document has been finalized. All right. Let me check this at 1:37. Yeah, the document has been finalized with the pump station update, the
Ball fields.
the what? The ball fields?
Mr.
The
Holmes, we have,
in the
we got it.
oh, you got it tonight?
It's,
Well,
it's in
you
the
have it.
packets.
It's in
Okay,
the
maybe I
packets.
didn't see it. Oh, here it is. Is this in
Mhm.
here?
And I noticed that the ball field language remains.
All right. Is there a section?
On page 17.
Okay, I got page 17. What is the,
Item 10, the language remains. We had said that, I believe that we had agreed that it would be, they would be refurbished according to, I can't remember the language. That was the prevailing vote for the Westfield RFP committee, was that the language would be that the fields, one field would be, I think, Babe Ruth
Babe Ruth standards, yeah.
Babe Ruth standards, and the other one was the Little League.
Little League.
Little League standards.
Yeah.
so section 10 is still not, have you had a chance to go through this whole thing?
No,
Yeah.
I just kind of glanced through.
All right, why don't we do this then? Why don't we take our time and go through this? I'll make a note of number 10. And then if there's anything that you find during the week here, just send an email to Bill Heaney, if you would, and let him know to update this so that we can get this in Mr. Foster's hands within the next week or so we can get this back up. Does that sound reasonable?
Would, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Slavin?
Town water and sewer.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Campina had given some information before I came on the board about sewer, the sewer hookup and tie-up because of the comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Yes.
This being outside the area project-wise. And it was going to require some information, I believe, to the bidders so they knew what they were getting. I don't think any language is there yet.
There is language here.
It says here, the Springborn pump station can handle a flow from Westfield. We do caution the developer that the DEP stated that Westfield is out of the fill-in area of the existing sewer when the CWMP was written, and therefore would require DEP approval to extend sewer to Westfield project if we moved before all 12 areas in the CWMP were completed. Is there something else you think needs to be added?
No, I think it's just they have to go through the whole DEP process, that's all.
Yeah.
In there.
They have to basically explain that to them a little bit.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair?
Thank you.
So if we do that, Mrs. Winslow.
May I just suggest that we email our changes to Mr. Sullivan, perhaps by close of business on Thursday, and then he can gather them, so only one email goes to Mr. Heaney?
That's fine too. Yeah. Let's
that
just
work?
try to get it done this week if we could.
Well, right, but
So
if
that-
we put a deadline on it and it all goes to Mr. Sullivan, then instead of getting multiple emails that could get lost,
All
then
right,
we...
today's Tuesday. Let's set that at 4:30 on Friday. How's that?
You want to do Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan can then
That'll give them
compile
the
'em.
weekend to put it all together, and then next Tuesday we can just sit during this period and go through the final draft.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we have a 7:15 show cause hearing for Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 138. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing at 7:17 p.m. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just skip that till she comes back.
Okay. We also have an application from Lindsay's Restaurant for pledge of license. Is there anybody here from Lindsay's Restaurant? Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, members of the board. I'm attorney Susan Callan, and you should have before you all of the application paperwork that was forwarded to your office
That was last week.
a couple of weeks ago, I think. In mid-February, Lindsay's Inc., the owner of Lindsay's Restaurant, applied for and was granted a mortgage with Rockland Trust Company, and one of the conditions of that loan and mortgage was a pledge of its liquor license. All of the paperwork has been completed. The owner of Lindsay's has signed not only the appropriate forms requesting the transfer, the pledge, but also a cover letter to the ABCC. And in your packet also is the actual assignment of interest in licenses, permits, and agreements that was executed by Ms. Lindsay to Rockland Trust Company.
Does the board have any questions?
No.
Mrs. Begley?
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the application from Lindsay's Restaurant, Inc. for a pledge of license to Rockland Trust Mortgage Company.
Yes, Rockland Trust Company, yes.
We have a motion by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mr. Slavin. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Will your board be forwarding that packet to the ABCC? Or will that-
Once we sign it,
Yes.
Shirley will take care of
Okay.
that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good evening.
You too.
Next, we have an application from Subway for a common vic license regarding change of location, which was continued from 4/10/2012. Do we have a representative from Subway?
Hi, good evening. This is Jay Patel, part owner of the Subway.
Do you want to give us a...
Yes, we actually opened it. I submitted all the application before we opened it, and we had no communication from the town. I think she sent an email that I have to come to the meeting, but I never. The email went to my spam folder. I never got it, so we missed the last appointment. Last hearing we had, and I opened the Subway at 2890. It's a new location, but all the paperwork was submitted before I opened it.
So you had a sign off from all the appropriate...
Yes, all the licensing board and, building department, health department, everybody.
The Selectman's office did send an email to the email address we had on file.
She did. It ended
Yes,
up
he
in
did it,
his.
and-
It ended up in his spam folder.
And I checked it out. I cleared it. I put it in my contacts. So I got next email, which is for
Okay.
today's meeting.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Slavin?
No questions right now.
Mrs. Begley?
Hi.
Hi.
So you just kind of moved across the street then,
Yes.
from where you were? But you opened prior to getting a license? Really?
Yes, I did.
No one was sitting there eating, though, right? For the last week and a half, they were all just walking customers. You really should have the town email on in your regular. It should be noted as safe mail, because we do send alerts from time to time, and you really need to have that
No,
address.
I put that in my
Yeah.
contacts. So now I will receive all the emails.
Okay.
So this won't happen again.
No, that was my first email from the town. So
Mr.
Because
Chair,
both myself and another selectman were very surprised driving by there and seeing the restaurant open, and
and
obviously paying
I
attention
noticed
to
it
what
and-
we do here on Tuesday nights. We know that we didn't authorize that.
I noticed it, and I
yeah.
came back right to the town and I explained her everything.
I was
And-
told as long as everybody was standing up, it was fine, though, as long as they didn't sit down to eat.
so you
Okay.
made sure the patrons were standing, correct? Thank you.
What date did you open at that location?
We opened on last Tuesday. Oh, sorry, last Thursday.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the application from Subway for a common vic license regarding the change of location, with the new location address being 2890 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Motion made by Kara, second by Mrs. Begley. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, abstained, 400.
Now everybody can sit down.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you. Mr. Chair, we have an application for the use of town roads by the National Multiple Sclerosis Society on June 23rd, 2012, from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and we have our representative who can tell us a little bit about his event. This is your 15 seconds of fame.
Thank you. My name is Bill Sykes, and I represent the National MS Society. My company, Promoter Line, does the logistics and manages the event for them. It actually says in the application that we're going to be using the roads from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., but the reality is this section that we come through Wareham is part of the 100-mile ride, and there's really a small percentage of riders from the 2,300 we have that come through town. It's about 200 riders, and they'll start arriving around 11 a.m. The route closes at 4, so we expect them to be through here by then.
Bagley, anything? Mr. Slavin?
This is a wonderful cause.
Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate-
Yeah.
I appreciate
It's the
your hard
largest
work.
fundraiser for, it's the largest fundraiser for the Greater New England chapter of the MS Society, and it really goes
Outstanding.
well.
How would a citizen who might be interested in getting involved in this get in touch with you to participate?
They can go on the National MS Society website and follow the links to this particular ride, which is the MS Cape Cod Getaway. It's June 23rd and 24th. We'll be coming through here on the 23rd.
Great.
And we will hire police officers for any intersections that may require them.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the application from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, care of Bill Sykes, 101A First Avenue, Suite 6, Waltham, Mass., for use of town roads to hold an MS 150 Cape Cod Getaway Bike Tour on Saturday, June 23rd, 2012, from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow. Second by Mrs. Slavin. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 400.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it seems that our attorney has returned to the table, so if we could go back to the 7:15 p.m. show cause hearing for Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant, I'd like to make a motion to open that hearing at 7:26.
Have a motion to open the hearing. Second by Mrs. Bagley. All in favor?
Aye.
400. Abstained, 0.
Okay.
You have to talk right into it.
Right in. Okay.
Or talk loud.
The manager of Ella's restaurant, actually, she's just walking in. Okay. I just need to grab something from her. So, the manager of Ella's restaurant has signed a stipulation stating that the restaurant was open on February 14th, 2012. The violation that we're here regarding is a violation of the liquor license because she was open on February 14th, which is a Tuesday. Her liquor license does not allow for service of alcohol on Tuesdays. And so instead of having the police officer come up and go through questioning to establish that the restaurant was in fact open, the manager has signed a stipulation. So I'd like to give this to the board. You can review that, and then I would hand it back to the board to determine her violation punishment, if that's the right word. I know that I have a copy of the town's alcoholic beverage control policy, and I have shared this with the manager of Ella's, and so she's aware of the possibilities as far as suspension, etc. Actually, before I do that, I'd like to give the manager the opportunity to talk with you if she'd like.
Absolutely. Good evening.
How are you?
You have to talk very close.
Really close.
And just tell us who you are.
My name is Bree Swarkowski. I'm the manager of Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant. I just wanted to come up and relay our apologies. It was not done with malice. It was Valentine's Day. It was the only reason we were open. We were answering a call from our patrons to open the restaurant for the night, and that's what we did. It wasn't even until the police officer walked in the door to check the license that I even thought once about it. It was Valentine's Day, a major holiday. I was more concerned about white linens and red roses and making a nice experience for our guests. And I just wanted to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and I'll say shame on me, but I'm hoping that you can be lenient with us and take into account our good record. We're very good about carding people. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of people who comment that they think it's kind of ridiculous that we card them, but we do what we do. Everybody that works for us has been tip certified, and we try our best not to make sure. This isn't a case of serving someone illegally or over-serving. It was answering the call for the Valentine's Day holiday.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Baker?
Ms. Swakowski, are you aware that you can come before this board for those particular holidays that fall on a day that you're not necessarily licensed for?
Well, I'll be honest with you, no, I'm not. But secondly,
But you know now.
I know now. Absolutely. Absolutely. And had I known, I would have come to you in a heartbeat. And if there was, like there is on Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, to the opportunity to extend hours and there's a fee to do so, I would have definitely done that.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say for myself, this is the first year that this location has had a full year's liquor license. In the past, it's always been a seasonal license, so the opportunity to be open for Valentine's Day wouldn't have been present because the seasonal license wouldn't have even allowed for an opening. I also want to stress that there's a stack of policies, and I do hope that you familiarize yourself with them because they are important. And within those policies is this very issue of being, I don't want to sound really harsh, but ignorance isn't an excuse for breaking the rules.
Absolutely.
However, I understand that it's, the first year, and it certainly wasn't done, with any malice, and they do have a good record. We have not had a problem with this location.
Mr. Slavin? Well, I appreciate your honesty. We all make mistakes. I understand that.
Thank you.
And I think that, there's been many suggestions in the last couple of months about having a workshop for owners of our establishments and have the board review these policies, update the policies, have Chief Stanley come in and have a workshop with all of our owners so that we all understand, because I got to be honest with you, some of these things they just don't make sense to me. You send an email to somebody, you don't get a response, but you do it anyway because that's what it says to do, communicate, right? So, listen, I appreciate your honesty. I think, and I agree with Mrs. Begley calling for the hearing because it is important to not chastise you in public, but it is important to let business owners know that we are responsible in this whole liquor business, right?
Right.
And so having you come was not meant to demean or embarrass you or your business. It was just meant to have some dialogue so that we can make sure that this type of thing doesn't happen to you or somebody else maybe watching tonight, and then they realize what the rules are. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Winslow.
may I make a motion that the verbal warning that we've issued tonight to the to Mrs. Swarkowski serve as the reprimand for the violation that occurred on February 14th, 2012.
Well, could I just, before we second that, or anyone seconds that, Mrs. Winslow and Mr. Chair, it is a public hearing, and is there other
It's a show
people that
cause.
have input?
Show cause hearing.
But it's a public hearing.
Does anyone have any commentary?
We can ask counsel.
You can, if you want to open it up to the public, you have the power to do that. You certainly
Yeah.
can. It
Is
was
there
on
anyone
your,
who'd
it was
like-
a posted hearing on your agenda, so.
There's nothing in that agreement that includes that,
And
right? Does anyone have anything? Justin?
My name is Justin Hadley. I own the Stonebridge Bistro. I'm in the same crock or whatever with Ella's, and I feel like part of this is not my fault, but she's gotten wrapped up in this thing because there are, from the police report, several texts that the bistro was in violation, not Ella's. And I've been trying to put a porch on the back of my place, and this, I would say, in my mind, I've never seen this in 8 years, this sort of thing going on. And in my mind, these laws have been hijacked by a select group that are upset with me trying to put a porch on. And I'm apologizing to Ella's that they have been caught in this waterfall. I do have a couple words to say because I feel like whatever judgment happens to Ella's is certainly going to happen to me. And I would like to say that...
Hang on a second.
Yeah, we need to stick to the topic. I know that we will get
If you have
to
public
the
commentary,
Stonebridge.
that's acceptable.
Yeah.
We just, I think that at this point, unless there's something else relevant to Ella's, we could probably hold your comments to your hearing.
Okay.
On
Well,
the Stonebridge.
I would like to say that in my experience in the town, I have had experience with my hours and holding a liquor license. And maybe I could relate how my experience has been in this town regarding that.
Mr. Hadley,
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing from council is that the public portion of this has to be in relation to the specific violation that the show cause hearing is about.
Correct.
For Ella's. And because she signed an acknowledgement of the violation, the issue of the hours, it
Yeah.
may be best that we just save this piece for the next,
All right.
okay?
I did my best.
You did. Thank
Thank
you.
And I'm sorry. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Okay. Mrs. Begley?
I'll second Mrs. Winslow's motion. Do you remember it?
Oh, you want to restate that motion?
Yes,
Please.
my motion was that the reprimand for the violation that occurred on February 14th, 2012, shall be simply the verbal warning.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mrs.
Oh,
Begley.
do I need to close the hearing? Okay,
We
Then
need to
we
close the
deliberate.
hearing first.
let me
Then we
withdraw.
deliberate.
I'll withdraw my
I withdraw
motion.
my second.
I make a motion to close the show cause hearing at 7:36 p.m.
Okay, I have a motion to close the hearing,
Second.
second by Mr. Slavin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400. Now,
Well, Mr. Chair, since we've deliberated kind of during the
Well, prior to making that motion, will this written document be placed in the file for Ella's?
The stipulation?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is the original copy. It's for the board. You are free to make copies of that. And in fact, a copy of it should be sent to Ella's. Obviously, tonight, it may not be able to be possible, but if you could, in the next few days, get that to her.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that the reprimand for the violation that occurred on February 14th, 2012 at Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant, the verbal warning that this board has issued shall serve as the reprimand / punishment, if you will.
have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow. Second by Mr. Slavin. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 0. Abstained? 0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have a 7:30 show cause hearing for the Stonebridge. I would like to make a motion to open that hearing at 7:38 p.m. and turn this over to Town Council.
Motion to open the hearing. Second
Second.
by Mrs. Begley. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 400.
Is there a representative from?
The representative from the Stonebridge and also the police officer who made the report on the Stonebridge? Do you have my copy of the?
Yeah. Okay, thanks. All right, great, thanks.
Please state your name and your position on the Wareham Police Department.
Christopher Park. I'm a police sergeant for the Wareham, town of Wareham.
And how long have you been with the department?
22 years.
As it applies to liquor licenses, what are your duties in the department as a police officer?
We're liquor enforcement officers.
Okay. And can you explain what a compliance check is?
We go in and check the liquor licenses. We also sometimes check at closing time, make sure everything is proper inside the establishment.
Okay. I have a police report that I'm going to show you, and you can tell me if you recognize it.
This is the log of that, of February 14th. And the last 2 pages of the report I completed that night.
And that police report was dated February 14th, 2012. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in this police report, what does it state with regards to the Stonebridge Bistro?
Approximately 1800 hours, I received a call from the chief of police that the Stonebridge Bistro was open and they were in violation of their liquor license for that day. I went to that establishment and confirmed they were open and were serving alcoholic beverages.
Okay. And on that night, was that the only establishment that you visited?
During that night, all alcohol beverage pouring establishments were checked.
Okay. So just to confirm, when your ultimate conclusion with respect to the Stonebridge Bistro on the night of February 14th, 2012, with respect to their liquor license, was?
They were in violation. The liquor license did not allow them to serve liquor on a Tuesday.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think that the manager, are you? the manager
Yes. May
has
I
some questions.
cross-examine?
You may ask the officer
Okay.
questions.
Was my establishment, out of all the restaurants that were to be checked that night, was my establishment the first to be checked?
Yes.
And on the police record, it says a note that there were several text tips. Is that how it was determined, initially called in?
No. Those came after I received a call from the chief.
All right, thanks. I'm not denying what happened that night. I have no further questions. But I do have some things to say beyond that, though. But as far as this cross-examining, I'm done.
If it's okay with the board, I think that we can let the police officer go on with his night, unless you have anything that you want to ask. No? Okay.
Can I just ask one question? I'm confused. The text-to-tip program was how you found out that the Stonebridge was open?
No, the chief called me prior to us receiving text tips, but we did receive, I believe, 2 or 3 after the initial call from the chief about them being open.
So is that how we typically get that information? It comes first to the chief and then goes to you or another officer? Would he have gotten the text-to-tip?
I have no knowledge how we received this information. We all received text tip at the same time, so we would have received it also.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there a time noted on that sheet of what time you received the text to tip?
I do not have that.
Thank you.
If you have no further questions for the police officer, we can let him step down.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not trying to waste everyone's time here. I think, but I would just like to say that my general hours of operation are posted on my license, and in the past, holidays like Easter, we would be closed. And on holidays like July 4th, we would be open within the guidelines of our general hours that are posted on our license. I'm not opposed to change. It's okay. I can adjust my hours. I just feel like to suddenly make this change without notifying us is just a little unfair, a bit unfair. I would like to mention that the liquor license held by a function hall just down the street from where I'm at states that they can be open 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day of the week. And there's clearly an understanding with the town that they're not really open all those hours. And to say that there's never been an understanding on holidays regarding things from general hours for restaurants, I think is stretching it.
This change, I'm looking at the license here. It says Wednesday through Sunday,
Yeah.
5 to 12.
And those are my general hours when I'm open. So now there's a lot of holidays like Labor Day, Memorial Day. July 4th might fall on a weird one. Patriots Day, I forgot to send in a letter this week, so I couldn't open. I'm befuddled by all this, but I can live with it. I'm going to put it on my liquor license so that this will not be a problem again in the future. And if I'm a chef owner, so I'm a busy guy, and so remembering every holiday or every function coming up and putting in letters is difficult sometimes. I've got a lot on my plate, and the secretaries are already sick of me coming in there with letters that I've already put into them. I think it's a lot of paper pushing. And in the past, we've had this. I used to do this, and we all were like, let's just make life easier on ourselves here. But Wareham's growing. We've got the Crossing now, and we have a lot of other restaurants with liquor licenses. We have like 10 more liquor licenses than when I first started. So I'm not opposed to change, and if we need the change, we probably do, and I'm gonna make those changes.
Thank you. Does the board have any comments? Mrs. Begley.
Mr. Hadley, this February 14th violation, there are 20-something restaurants in the town of Wareham that serve alcohol, and there were 2 in violation. So everyone else complied. So those that weren't supposed to be open on a Tuesday were not, and the ones that had on their license. You chose the days and the hours for your license and came before this board to have it approved.
Correct.
And it says, the hours of operation, it says every applicant for a license or permit shall state the desired hours of operation upon the application form. And number 2 is all applicants shall be open for business during all hours authorized by their license, except in an emergency or as authorized by the licensing authority. So that's us. And I can't imagine that this board would have denied you being open on Valentine's Day, or if you want to be open on Labor Day.
Yes, I will certainly send a letter.
So this board is, and you don't have to do it as the months come up. You could come in June and say, okay, July 4th doesn't fall on the day, Labor Day. You can do a couple of them. So you don't have to wait a week or 2 weeks before.
Oh,
you can
that's
certainly
great.
come before this board. And I think I understand your angst because it's a difficult economy. You're trying to be a successful business in an onset. So we absolutely get that. But we are the licensing authority, and there's laws that we have to uphold. And that's just the way it is. And comparing yourself to a function hall, they have flexibility, but they're not they're not held to the same standard as you are because they are not open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're not. They're a function hall. It's different than you're a restaurant and you're open from whatever it says on your license, from 5 to midnight, but you have not been open till midnight. And just notifying even the office that it's slow, we're going to close at 9, and notifying the police officers so that they know that, you know, you guys aren't tied up in the back somewhere by some hoodlums would be helpful.
Okay.
So it's to protect you, it's to protect the public.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin? Any comment?
This is your first year-round license that you got from before?
I've had a year-round beer, wine, and cordials license for 7 years prior
Okay.
to this, and then just I've held this license for 1 year.
1 year. Never had any problems before?
I've never had a single problem.
Okay. It's just a matter of going over the, you know, how the records are and what you have to do.
I've got to
We
cross
actu-
my T's and dot my
Yeah,
I's.
we actually do
Yeah.
have, because you sent us a copy of Salerno's, and they do have a Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., so, that 1 a.m. So basically, it's there. You can set your hours and the board will approve it. So in the future, just,
Yeah,
as said before, just come in and take care of it.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Hadley, I think that it goes without saying that clearly, you know, sometimes these things happen because people don't read everything that they're given. And it is important that you do that because ignorance is no excuse for breaking the rules. And we do try our best to work with our businesses because we understand that it's a tough market and it's tough to make a living in this economy. So I just want you to understand that the stuff that the office gives you, it is important to take the time and go through so you understand the procedures. And later on in this agenda, we're going to talk about updating those policies. So when that occurs, you need to make sure that you're clear, and if you have questions, they need to come to the licensing authority so we can make sure that we're all clear.
One more thing, Mr. Chair.
Quickly?
You sent a email, or you brought in an email to the Board of Selectmen about, is it April 23rd? Did I have the right date? You had a date in April that you wanted extended hours.
Extended hours?
Did you?
I've been under alteration, so my bar is almost done with the wiring.
I thought you had a date that,
But
did you not drop something off, or am I thinking of something else? That you wanted extended hours for some sort of function that was going to happen over there?
yes, I'm sorry. I
I thought
did-
I was going crazy.
No, I've put in things for Easter to be open and then they're closed. And but yeah, I'm doing. It'll be great. We're having a boat show that's coming up on April 23rd, I think it is, or 22nd. Yeah, for Atlantic Boats, and they're going to be giving rides back there, and we're hoping to be open to serve just sausages and hot dogs.
That's a great public service.
No, but this is a public hearing. There was no times on that. So that goes with kind of a
What does
violation.
this have to do with Valentine's Day?
Well, it's a potential violation, so we can certainly
Wow.
talk about that after, if you'd
Yeah.
want to.
Let's stick to Valentine's Day if we could, because
I'll
that's what
I'll drop
the-
off another letter with the hours.
That's what the
That's
deal
what I'll
is.
do.
Let's
Okay.
try to stick to that. Right? Anyone like to comment on this issue? Up, down, sideways, hearing none?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the show cause hearing for the Stonebridge at 7:53 p.m.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mr. Slavin to close the hearing. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 0. Abstained? 0.
I'll make a motion for a letter of reprimand for Stonebridge Restaurant.
I'm sorry, what was it again?
Motion for a letter of reprimand for the Stonebridge Restaurant for this particular offense.
Motion for a written reprimand
Mhm.
from the incident of February 14th. I have a motion. Have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion.
The restaurant that came prior to the Stonebridge was given a verbal reprimand.
Okay.
Well, they're putting a letter in the file.
That's right.
Well, you document a verbal reprimand, but there's a difference between a verbal reprimand and a written
You
reprimand.
said letter, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
He said letter.
I know. That's why I seconded for discussion. I just wanted to make sure that
The reason I use the word letter in our rules and stuff, it says letter of reprimand and off days fine. It doesn't say verbal reprimand in our policy and bylaws.
well, maybe the council can clarify, but
The board has wide discretion. I believe in here, it does say letter of reprimand. Boards have, you have the discretion to reduce that if need be, if you determine that it's warranted. You can't make it worse than what's in your policy.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Through you.
Mr. Slavin.
To the lawyer, what is the difference as far as a letter versus a verbal as far as actual function?
That would really depend on how you treat it as an internal board. In some boards, there is really no difference. In some cases, a board will put a note in a file that says that, oh, a verbal reprimand was given, and sometimes that's treated as a letter reprimand. I don't know your past dealings, so I don't know how you treat them differently. They can be different, but it really depends on the board's practices.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting that because they're similar, they're the exact same violation, that we should probably handle them in identical ways, because to me there's a difference between giving somebody a verbal warning and writing them a letter.
Well, we're documenting the oral warning and putting the letter in the file.
That's right.
We
have it for Ellis.
we
I
are.
thought the motion was the same.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss something?
No.
It's a documented letter of the warning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that my motion was different, so I don't want us to appear to be treating this case differently than the case that we just had before us.
I think that the motions are different, but they're having the same effect based on the conversation that you're having.
It's a warning about opening on off hours, and there's a letter going in the file.
To document the verbal warning, just so
Mhm.
that the board is aware that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a formal written
Right.
violation
That's my understanding. Mr. Slavin, you made the
letter.
motion. Can you clarify that? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Also because we had the document that was signed by Ellis. We don't have it on this one right now.
That's right.
Okay. Anything else on the question? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstained? 400. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
We'll get you Justin, we'll get a copy of that sent off to you as well.
Mr. Chair, under the consent agenda, authorization to sign bills and documents, we do not have any bills. We have an appointment of associate member to the Conservation Commission. We have one application.
You're good with
There's one vacancy that exists for an associate member. We interviewed Mr. Joseph Leggett on January 24th. Oh, good.
Thank you very much.
I hope my baby's in bed watching me on TV. Okay, one vacancy exists for associate member. Mr. Leggett was interviewed by the Board of Selectmen on January 24th, and the Conservation Commission voted unanimously to recommend the appointment. I do not, Mr. Leggett is here tonight, but we don't necessarily need to see him. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Mr. Joseph Leggett as an associate member to the Conservation Committee for a term to expire no later than, they didn't give me the sheet. Do you have it over there, Mr. Chair? 2012.
Should be last year.
Yeah. So the motion was to appoint Mr. Leggett to a term as to an associate member to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2012.
I have a motion. Second by Mr. Slavin. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
Mr. Chair, we are on to SOAR business. We have wind resource data report by Atlantic Engineering.
Mr. Campina, good evening. If you'd have your guests come up, introduce them. What is first on the docket?
Wind resource data report by Atlantic Engineering.
This is the, just a little background on this. We paid for a study sometime last year or the year before, Mr. Campina. Give us a little background on this.
I don't have the exact date, but when I came on in 2010, there was some documents about a wind study authorized by the board, and there was a grant program in place. So we moved it forward. December of 2010, we actually put the Met Tower up, and she's been collecting data ever since. We've received one reimbursement so far in the grant program, and we're in line for another reimbursement. Part of that reimbursement talks about an actual feasibility study, so we're excited about that. So anyways, this is Atlantic Engineering, and they've spent the last year and a half collecting data as the actual wind results in the Met Tower has been producing. So they have taken that data and they've made some a report.
Are you doing a PowerPoint?
Yes. Yes.
So maybe you want to.
I'm going to turn it over to them. He may want to use the mic also during the PowerPoint. He can sit there.
Well,
and
you could turn your mic around.
But this is Andrew from Atlantic Engineering.
Andrew, good evening. Welcome and thank you. Yeah, bring up a chair, bud. Over there. We'll be sending you up to Toby Hospital if your knees will be all buckled by the time you're done. What can we do to adjust the lighting? Can we adjust that set off maybe so we can see that better? Wrong set. There you go. Can you see that on the TV?
Okay.
Can you see it? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Simon Thomas from Atlantic Design Engineers. Andrew Young is with me tonight. And basically what we want to do was to basically go through a little bit of the history of what we set out to do, where we're at, and ultimately we're looking for some, I guess, direction, guidance, and input from the board. Just in terms of project history, back in 2008, we approached the board on behalf of the sewer district to request authorization for completing a feasibility study of the wind resource and wind potential at the wastewater treatment facility. The board that night voted to award or fund, I believe it was either $40,000 or $45,000 of fees towards completing that study. We subsequently submitted to the Mass CEC and received a grant award in addition to that towards completing that study. We then, in working with the town, submitted and went through a permitting process for the installation of a Met Tower. Then went out to an RFP for a contractor to provide, install, and operate that Met Tower. The tower was installed, as Guy indicated last year, and we've just finished up collecting a full year of data and completed a wind resource report. The reason we're in here now is that the political landscape, or I don't want to say political, the technical landscape with respect to wind turbines in the town has changed somewhat in terms of the bogwind process. Our original, I guess, mandate was to go through, and we are funded for a full feasibility study. We thought it was appropriate in talking with Guy and with the Clean Energy Center to basically bring in the results of the work to date and get direction and guidance as to proceeding. And I guess it's just the backdrop on that is that the private sector projects like Bogwin tend to be more controversial, and I think we're looking for probably guidance and direction in light of the wind bylaw and possible upcoming changes to that bylaw. Next slide, please. Okay, and here I'm going to turn it over to Andrew when he's going to sort of go through from a technical perspective in terms of the wind study that we found actually pretty encouraging results.
To save you guys, half hour worth of the full report, I'm just going to give you the basics here. Starting off, the Met Tower was up from February of 2011 through February of 2012. It's a standard wind industry to have 12 months worth of Met data. Over that time period, we had 80% of that data was recovered. There were 2 instances when we lost power, and they're easily isolated, so we're happy with the recovery. During that time, the top of the Met Tower at 60 meters, which is approximately 130 feet or so, the average wind speed was 5.18 meters per second. And the prevailing wind direction is from the southwest, which is common for the region. And then the 2 graphs we see here, the top right is the monthly average wind speed. You can see during the middle portion of that graph, that's during the summertime, months of June, July, and August. It's typical to have a lower wind speed, as obviously during the winter we experience much more storm activity and higher winds. In the lower right, you also see the daily variation in the wind speed. You can see that during the mid-afternoon hours between 12 and 5 are typically when we're seeing higher wind speeds, which is often a good time because that's when the peak energy demand is also seen on the power grid. After getting our average long-term over that year, what we did was correlate to nearby weather stations at 4 different airports. These stations are maintained by the National Weather Service, and we were able to get a 17-year data set to compare our 1 year of data, so we get a much better long-term overall average. As we said, between February 2011 and February 2012, we had 5.18 meters per second at the top of the Met Tower. With the long-term adjustment on that 17-year data set, we were able to move that up to 5.48 meters per second. And then extrapolating it up to where a typical hub height would be, we got 6.1 meters per second. Simon?
And just a little, I guess, is this one working okay? Yeah. Okay, got it. All right. Is when we had first done the predictive review back in 2008, we didn't see the type of wind resource that we actually monitored out there. And I think in the initial discussions we had, we were looking at wind turbines at a larger scale, an 100 meter, to provide, let's say, the type of power that would make a difference at the wastewater treatment plant. With the wind that we were able to monitor out there, it was much higher, and that combined with the secondary impact that turbine blade efficiency has increased dramatically the last 4 or 5 years, and the turbines now with the larger blades relative to the overall height are providing a lot more power. So our original opinion was a larger scale turbine would be required. Our opinion based on this data is that a turbine in the scale of 80 meters, which would be some of the ones that I don't know if you guys have seen any of the new ones in the area in Situate, Fairhaven, the 2 down over at Mass Maritime when you go over the bridge, it would be in the same scale of those as opposed to the higher ones that say the future generation one in Plymouth is installing now. So basically,
so you're talking about the same size as the height in Fairhaven.
Yes.
And I will tell you that I did get out of the car, and the blades are the same size. So I'll verify that for you. I had my little guy with me. He didn't believe me. It is an illusion. We did get out of the car and walked up to the sewer plant, and the blades are the same size. When you look at those, I don't know if anybody's seen those, but the lower blade looks like this, this, and I swore they were not the same size, but they are.
I had to stop and look myself Monday when I was down that way.
Okay, so,
Yeah, this can be interactive here, so if
Okay.
any of the board members have something that
oh,
are questioning along the way, please do that.
okay, so what I want to do, just sort of run through some of the, I think, the positives, and then discuss some of the things that I think we're looking for input first. I mean, Andrew, do you have the slides for some of the other municipals?
Yep.
Okay. One of the things that the first time we came, the board legitimately said, well, gee, how many turbines are up, and geez, should we be looking at this? And at that time, we were early in here, and there weren't a lot of turbines up. There have been a lot more, and driving around, you may have seen a lot more. And these are all representing here projects that Atlantic has been the prime engineer for. If anybody's been through Providence lately, there's 3 turbines at Fields Point in the city of Providence, and those are 3 identical scale 80 meter, actually these are 70 meter hub height turbines, 1.5 megawatt they've been installed now for about a month, and we're going through the commissioning now. Mount Wachusett, we installed 2 at Mount Wachusett Community College under a DCAM grant. It's the first college, to my knowledge, in the country now that's 100% green. They're self-sufficient, no off-site energy required at all on campus, and it's part of their educational program. And again, they have dormitory in close proximity to structures, and as of now, everything's been very well received. Same thing you'll see in the lower slide, 2 80-meter turbines have been installed at North Central Correctional Institute, and again, that will make them energy independent. We're in the process of installing at UMass Dartmouth 600 kW Elecon that's just been refurbished from the Cape Cod Community College. And at the bottom, we commissioned about 3 weeks ago an 80-meter Cinevel at the town of Scituate wastewater treatment plant, which to date has been very, very well received.
Yep. That's good as far as our...
And if you want to back up to that summary slide. Okay, just one more. So just here was a couple bullet points of, geez, the good news is we have the RIN to do a turbine if it makes sense for the town. The other good news is the town wastewater treatment plant, it really is a pig. You use up a lot of energy and you're paying a lot of money for it. The setbacks that are potential at the wastewater treatment plant compared to Fairhaven, we're at 750 feet, Scituate 625 feet, I think Kingston we're about 720 feet. We're about double that to the closest houses. So again, I'm not speaking here to say we should do it. I'm speaking it as to give you guys a comparison of how this would rate with those. The other thing is the technology has changed so dramatically in the last 5 years that the turbines we buy today are programmable controls, so that if we have impacts for noise or shadow flicker, it's a matter of control and adjustment. You're not looking at, gee, we just spent a lot of money on a turbine, and we've created impacts that we can't mitigate, and therefore we've got some hard decisions to make. The next one is FAA we screened out, which means it can be approved by the FAA for install. And the last one, and I think I highlighted in 2 of the bullets, is just really, we're comparing it to the current wind energy bylaw, which I know there's been discussion and debate, and probably at the current town meeting, as to whether that is the correct bylaw, whether it stays in place or is going to be addressed. I don't know what the current plans are. And just as a summary to all this, we have been discussing through the CEC in terms of coming here tonight, because their perspective is they've awarded some significant funds to the town to complete the full study. We've let them know that we're stopping it right now at the wind report, because if there is a sense that this project makes sense, we would look to get guidance that we should continue through, not to do the project, but through the full feasibility study. If you guys feel that it's not the right thing for the town, then I think CEC would look to, I guess, shut down the rest of the grant. And that's sort of, they're looking for us to get from you guys feedback as to how we should treat the grant. Did I cover that?
Exactly. The grant is in place, and the CEC sent us a letter. I believe I emailed it to each members of the board, saying that because of the climate in Wareham, they felt that they shouldn't continue to spend money because they felt it wasn't a valuable investment. So the guidance we're looking for is I'd like to get back to the CEC and say, no, we'd like to get through feasibility, and use up the money, because we have a contract, but they would like to stop at this point. So the goal is to spend the money up, at least do the feasibility, and at that point see where we are. So that's the kind of guidance we're looking for.
Mr. Chair.
Are we done with the PowerPoint?
One more slide. One of the things we wanted to do was, and again, things change very fluidly with wind turbine economics. With the current net metering program, they're actually improving dramatically. And one of the things I believe back when we first started talking to you guys, we'd run some project economics. Things like renewable energy credits were between, I think, 2.5 and 3 cents. A year ago, they were at 1.2 cents for a kilowatt hour, which means every kilowatt hour you generate, you would get a credit, a cash payment of 1.2 cents. As of today, if you go to the REC website, they're going for 5.9 cents bid, 5.8 cents ask. We just had one of our clients sell out the rest of the year at 5.9. They pre-sold the rest of the year at 5.8. It's a volatile thing because you've got two things that impact it. One is they're getting tremendous value now because the turbines that they expected to go in and solar have gone a lot more slowly, so they are not available. So those ones that are out there generating power are they're getting crazy good prices. At the same time, there are potential events down the road like Cape Wind going online, which could drive things back down again. And right now, the RPS is set up that every year it goes up. So the idea is, as more comes online, the value stays stable. It's been nothing but stable. When you look at this cost sheet here, we had put de minimis value on RECs to say, let's discount the value. And very simply, we had looked at three possible scales of turbine that Guy had asked us to go to give a frame of reference. If you look at the first category, it's ranging from a utility, mid-scale turbine, 850 kilowatt Gamesa. That would be similar in scale and feel to the one at Mass Maritime, if any of you have had an opportunity to see that. The Goldwyn and Centerville will be similar to the Dartmouth, sorry, I apologize, to the Situate, Fairhaven, and Providence. And they're very cost effective because the things that have happened now is the industry in New England is very cost efficient at the installs, so the price per kilowatt hour is probably an all-time low in terms of your cost to put one up. And the last one is a Gamesa, which is a utility scale, 2,000. We just put that in for reference points right now. That if anybody's been in Kingston, we were the permitting engineers for the three behind Independent Small. Those are Gamesa G90s on 80-meter hub heights, and we're in the process of doing the permitting for DCAM for one in Plymouth as we speak off of Exit 5. So when you look at all that, there's a range of power output from 1.6 to 4.1 million kilowatt hours, and the bottom line of that is for those heights there similar to the other, we can generate a lot of power. So the opportunity is there. The projected savings, we've got two columns there. One is just saying, gee, if we floated a 15-year bond, would the town have to spend any money on it? They would be cash flow positive from day one, all models. The other one, where you've got slightly higher numbers, is saying, what would be the annual net benefit over the term of owning the turbine, including that you're going to have years where debt service is retired. We ran it over 20 years. Our experience is the turbines are seeing 25 years or better of operation. Again, this is based on numbers we have for many other projects. It's not based on a formal feasibility study. The purpose was just to give you guys a frame of reference, and we've probably left about $100,000 of REC revenue off the table trying to be conservative.
Right.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yeah, hey, Mrs. Begley, just 1 second. Are we done with the PowerPoint so that we can discuss with the lights on?
I want to refer to this.
Oh, okay. Go right ahead.
The first turbine, the total height, is that including the blades?
Yes.
So all of that, okay. So the last one, the first one is more like Mass Maritime, and the last one is 90 feet higher.
Yes.
Does that affect the distance from a residence?
In terms of impact?
Placement.
In terms
Yes.
of placement? Under the current bylaw, you're going to look at two things. You're going to look at on-site siting as far as tip of the blade setback from the property line. For all those models, because the wastewater treatment property is so large, it's not an issue at all to site to comply with the current bylaw. The other standards in terms of flicker and noise have to do with the impact levels. And typically on a smaller turbine like the 850, geez, I don't want to get too technical, the maximum noise levels will be in the upper 90 dBA, whereas you'll go up to about 102, 103 on the other turbines. They're all different because, for example, the Goldwind is a direct drive, basically doesn't have a gearbox, so believe it or not, it's a quieter turbine that gives you slightly lower impacts. But in sense, those are all things that you study as part of the feasibility study to bring hard answers so that no decisions get made based on this. By the time you would have anything in front of you, it would be based on hard answers to those questions, because that is the right question.
Right, because I saw in your previous slide that you had written sufficient setbacks, but there wasn't any kind of definition for that. Now, how much was the grant? Mr. Campina?
$40,000, $39,800 and something dollars. So $40,000 was the grant, and we've used $20,000.
Now, going back to the previous slide, if you don't mind. I think that you answered my question about the sufficient property line and the minimal anticipated noise impacts. Believe me, we heard lots and lots and lots about decibels and noise studies and those kinds of things with a previous project. So I think that as a result of those, there's going to be a lot of people that do live in that neighborhood that are going to express some concern and want the information.
Yes, that is the critical, I think, on all projects. All the ones that we showed you slides on, that was the key focus right through the upfront decisions to move and through the permitting and approvals of those projects.
Right, and if we were to do part 2 in the complete feasibility study, those questions would be answered in more detail. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
By the grant.
That is exactly, that's what the state's intent is, to provide that information up front before project risk is taken by the town, saying this is or is not a good project for the town.
Without, are we done with this screen? Can we put the lights back on, please? I can hear it now that we're discussing wind in the dark. Mr. Slavin, do you have any questions? Before.
Guy, this project, as of right now, has not been filed at all, so it's still at a point where it would not be grandfathered in if the town meeting votes to remove the wind turbine bylaws on the 23rd.
We've done no filing whatsoever. It's all been collecting data, and they're presenting the data this evening. That's something we could discuss at a later time, but at this point, no.
Okay. If this is going to go forward at all, it would have to be somehow registered in before the 23rd, or else there's a good chance that we'll be at a point where we're going to be stopped anyways.
We've discussed this with the engineering firm, and that's something that they're capable of doing. So if we're going to move on with the feasibility study, we would do something like that under the understanding that if the feasibility study proved out that it wasn't worth doing, then we stop it. If it says it is worth doing, then we're in place to move forward. So that's the understanding that we're working under at this point in time.
Mrs. Winslow?
I'm a big fan of green energy. However, there are often concerns, so I would lean towards filing the paperwork and completing the feasibility study, and if we look at the data and we don't feel comfortable, then we say no. But if we don't file the paperwork, then we're not going to get an opportunity to say yay or nay, because if the bylaw is repealed at town meeting, then there's not going to be anything to work with. So one thing I do want to bring to your attention, and I'm not sure, there is a preschool going to be going in close proximity to the wastewater treatment plant. There are going to be concerns of the parents, especially with the decibel, the noise decibel and flicker, because, and I'm not going to debate the merits of the arguments, but there are concerns about issues that can be caused by those things. So I just want you to be aware of that going forward. I don't know if it's going to be built this year or in 5 years, but there's a big sign up.
And I think you're right on target. Is the right way to approach it is address those concerns and issues in the feasibility study and put a data set of all that information including issues, concerns, and the experiences at all the other schools right now, like Portsmouth High School, like Portsmouth Sisters of the Holy Name, and the Malden Catholic School that have operating turbines on premise now. But those are very important questions, and I think part of this is to make sure that information is well presented so that if you guys look at it, you've got the right information to make decisions on.
And I'm concerned myself. My wife has Meniere's disease, and I'm in a butter. So I want to see the data also, and I wouldn't move forward if it's going to jeopardize her health. So I'm going to look just as closely. If it makes sense and it won't impact her life personally, we'll move forward. If it's going to impact her life, then I'll have to make a different decision. So it'll be a tough hat to wear. So I'm equally curious.
It's, you know, there's a new show on TV called Turbine Cowboys. I don't know if you've seen it yet,
No,
but yes, that's correct. Although I think I'm going to miss it, but you know, I would prefer to file the permits and at least get the data so we can make an informed decision. That would be my preference. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the things I'd like to see when the results come back is I've read through the data and the report, and my big questions come around ownership of the system. And I really believe that the town should own this, not go through a developer and they get so many pennies on a kilowatt hour and those types of things. I really firmly believe that Mr. Sullivan is here tonight, a financial whiz, so I'm sure he's over there. But I see him with his calculator. He's already figured out what it's going to cost over 5 years. And Mr. Foster will be back next week, and I'm sure the two of them will talk about this in the next few months. But because this is positive cash flow based on some of your results that you showed in your documentation. Now, when we do the second half of the grant, and we get the feasibility study done, all those questions would be answered in addition to the ones of Mrs. Begley, correct? You'd give us some kind of an analysis of whether it's town-owned or whether we go through a developer or that ownership piece, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, we run economic models both ways, but it's not our role to make that decision. It's our job to say, here's pros and cons, and it's ultimately at the end.
No, I wasn't asking you to make that decision.
Yeah.
I was asking you to show,
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
if the town owned it,
Yep.
Here's what it would cost, and then here's the revenue benefit. And then Mr. Campini could say, here's the reduction in my expenses at the plant, here's the reduction in somebody's EDU rates, because obviously he doesn't need as much money to run the plant. And then you can actually backflow some of the additional stuff back through the meter, which the town could direct, correct?
Yes.
We would actually own that, the
and-
extra, because it's our project,
Yeah.
correct?
And one of the good things now is that NSTAR and NGrid now, we have so many turbines up. The wrinkles are out. We now know, working together, how to do the ground interruptions, how to do the fault relays, how to install them, and how to minimize, you know, avoidance for service. So we're now speaking the same language, and it's actually a proactive process where I'll tell you, a few years ago, probably they weren't as ready to deal with these things.
Can I ask another question?
Mrs. Begley? Sure.
Just to be clear, Atlantic Engineering also installs
No, we
wind
do
turbines?
not.
You just
No.
do a feasibility study?
No, we are involved soup to nuts in feasibility study, wind resource assessment, project permitting, which is usually the challenging time, which is noise studies, shadow flicker studies, project economics, and the site plans. And then we provide construction support and assistance through the project. But we're not a contractor, and our job is to represent the town and represent your interests throughout.
So how do you address some of the health, the controversial aspects of health impact of wind turbines? How do you address that with the affected neighborhoods?
Okay, there's two things to that. One is bringing to the table the available information on both sides, so as part of the process, in the public outreach process, that information is being distributed and shared. And part of that development process, there are a number of professionals, doctors and so forth, the experience we recommend for those questions, bringing those guys in to help support that part of the process. And there's 2 or 3 guys out there. we've worked with that I believe have been very good at getting proper information out.
Guy, what do you need from us?
What we need from you at this point is, and I think you've said it, the consensus has been that we should move forward, spend the grant money. I'll, if with your permission, get a letter off to the CEC and say that we'd like to move forward, complete the feasibility study, and then at that point we can review the feasibility study and see where we're going to go from there. And I would like your blessing to do that.
Mr. Chair.
I just have two questions, Guy. The feasibility study, do we have a cost on that? Is it going to go past the 20,000 that's left?
The estimate has been about $23,000, $24,000 at this point in time, and we may not get that high. There's a couple estimates, but I'll get specific numbers from Mr. Studz as to what that'll be and what his willingness to either extend that or also Atlantic gets involved because they're part of the study also. So I'll be beating them up for their fees. Well, I don't mean it that way, but I'll be asking them to help us get to that $40,000.
I'm sure they'll work with you.
Just so you know, we will be well within the budget that was originally set for the project between the town and the state.
Okay. The other question I have is if the town owns the project, is there any difference as far as the grants, subsidies, et cetera, for the wind turbine project?
Yes, if the town owns it and you go through a CEC process, those awards go to the town as part of the project. If it's done under a public-private partnership, then that's applied through on that side, and they take that along with any other private sector subsidies, and it flows through to the town in terms of what they would do is negotiate a power purchase agreement with the town, and in essence, the town's revenue would come from discounted power.
Okay. The question basically is it less expensive or more expensive for the town if it owns it?
If the town owns the project, the town bonds it, it has the responsibility to pay that bond. If a private partnership is formed, the private entity takes that responsibility, so they take that, they take responsibility for the payments.
When you mentioned the numbers, you said that it runs a positive cash flow, so it will cover the cost of the bond over a 15-year bond or whatever we do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
To clarify that, so if it was a public-private and the private took on the expenses for the installation, then they would also get the positive cash flow. Is that correct? Or the town?
Yes.
The town?
And at this point, I'm going from fact to opinion. Typically, if we look at a town project in this utility scale turbine, the anticipated benefit with the right wind resource like here is usually about $500,000 or something. Again, it could be lower, it could be higher. If you look at towns like Situate that have gone through that process, their expectation is in the $200,000 to $300,000 range for that. But again,
And that'll
that's
all be addressed
Could I just
Yes.
ask
in the study,
one more
correct?
question and then
Yeah,
people can
the
make the
facts, but
motion?
again, the discussion, I think, is really you guys in terms of.
How long have you had this particular information to bring before the board?
In terms of the wind study, I think we wrapped it up about, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, about 10 days ago, and at that point, the CC asked us to submit a draft, which we had. They reviewed it, and they said, okay, that's a final. There's no other improvements to that. And so once we had that done, we immediately got it to the board so you could share it with you folks and see where we go from here. So it's pretty new.
And that's one of the things that if you guys do vote to move forward, is we would request them to complete their review of that report, because their review and validation of everything is a good thing for any program.
Well, the reason why I ask is it's 6 days before town meeting. The last Board of Selectmen's meeting, other than the one that we're going to have an hour before town meeting next Monday.
I would like to have got on the
Information,
agenda
given that
last
we
week,
have a
but
warrant article.
yeah, I would like to go on the agenda last week, but it was pretty choked, and this was the sewer one, so we just moved it. We had this. It wasn't. We just got the information, and as soon as we got it, we brought it forward.
And the CEC did accept it as a draft, so they're.
That's fine.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I will make a motion to, I guess, direct Mr. Sullivan to assist Mr. Campina and Atlantic Engineering with the filing of the appropriate permitting for the wind project at the wastewater facility plant prior to April 23rd.
I'll second that.
I have a motion made and seconded on the question. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All abstained? 3-1-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
And the other part of that, I don't know if it's included in that, would just be to get a letter authorized by the Board of Selectmen to request that the CEC continues their funding of the grant that you currently have under contract.
Mr. Sullivan can draft a copy of the motion and the vote.
Okay.
We won't meet again to sign it till
Okay.
Monday. So, Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you get a letter to Atlantic Engineering stating the motion and the selectmen's vote in favor so they can get it to CEC so we don't lose our...
Yes, first thing tomorrow morning we'll have that together. And why don't, if I can hop over and share some information with them so we can get that started right away, that'd be great.
I would suggest, not to, but we have his email. First of all, we could type something, email to him immediately, and then follow it up with hard copy.
You guys can work out the logistics.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Campino?
One question. When Derek is going to go ahead, I think Rich Bowen is out right now. He's going to need some. He's going to need some town council in order to file this in that time frame. It's a land issue.
We'll get it done. Mr. Bowen is on vacation, but his firm is, as tonight, was represented.
I think he'll be back on Friday. We
Mr.
have
Campino.
solar farm proposal by Siemens.
Yes, Siemens is a company that came in that is going to put the presentation on for us. They're not hired to do anything. They're not doing anything. They do everything at no cost to us. They just give us some ideas of what we could do with the land. We have a landfill that was abandoned along the, I would say, the west property line. It's approximately, I would say, 3.5 to 4 acres. We've already contacted DEP and got their blessing to add solar there if we so choose. So they made a couple proposals using that and other land on the treatment facility for solar to tie it in with the wind, so we could become totally self-sufficient and then also sell back to the town or meter back to the town to help in their electrical bill. So they have a presentation, and I'll turn it over to them and let them present it to you and go from there.
Thank you, Guy.
I'm sorry?
Isn't this the same thing that we already saw?
I'm not sure. You saw solar?
Didn't we see?
No, this is, there were two pieces that Mr. Campino has been working on at the treatment plant. One
Three
is
pieces,
solar
yeah.
and one is wind. This is the solar component of that.
Correct. This is the
Siemens
solar.
was also before us at the workshop, and I think a couple of weeks ago that was on power efficiency, energy efficiencies. This is a different project.
Yeah, they were on ESCO, which involves about 15% of the ESCO component was energy savings, and the 85% was on process control, odor control, renewable energy, which would be methane gas and those type of things. So that was the ESCO.
Can I just, before you start?
I'm not going to let them
because it's
go.
hard, because you go. Is this in addition to, or alternative to?
It's in addition to.
In addition to the wind turbine?
Yes, ma'am. It's in addition to. If the wind was to go down and fire, at least we would have this. But this in addition to. This can be scaled down or up, and I think they'll present that.
So it's not an alternative. It could be an alternative.
Could be an alternative. It could be a
it's-
combination.
But right now, it's in conjunction with.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. With the option of, you'll see that. I'll turn it over to
Proceed,
Dan.
please.
Thank you, Guy. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and the Wareham community. My name is Daniel Smith, Solar Development Executive with Siemens. Joining me here this evening is David Nelson, Solar Project Manager. We're here this evening to express our excitement and strong endorsement of the potential development of a solar array at your wastewater treatment facility plant at 6 Tony's Drive. The intent of the presentation is for informational purposes. We'll go over the mechanics related to a power purchase agreement, if the board so desires to move forward, as well as what the conceptual design and layout could look like at the facility, as well as speaking to the 3 E's: the economic impact, the environmental impact, and the educational impact associated with projects such as these. If you don't mind, I'll just bring the presentation up. Go for a solar ride.
Anthony, can we have the lights, please? Thank you.
And certainly, this is for informational purposes, so if the board has any questions, please feel free to interrupt and as we go along here. Let's see. Having some trouble here. I sure hope so. View slideshow. There we go. Sorry for the format, but so again, this is a large-scale solar array, approximately sized for 1.3 megawatts. And the key topics of discussion again are the mechanics of a power purchase agreement, what we believe would be in the best interest of the town of Wareham in terms of a partnership, overall project snapshot, a cost-saving snapshot, not related to this project, but to another nonprofit institution located here in Massachusetts that is assessing a carport opportunity that's paying a high rate for electricity. An environmental impact snapshot of a project such as the one that we believe is very cost-effective and beneficial for the town, and then a few photographs of some sample ground-mounted projects similar in scope and aesthetics. So the mechanics of a power purchase agreement, it's basically a bilateral agreement between a developer and an off-taker, where the developer would engineer, procure, and construct, own, operate, and maintain, and finance a solar array at no cost to the partner, where the counterparty agrees to purchase the power at an agreed-upon rate, which in most instances is well below market rate, with a fixed annual escalator. So for example, the town of Wareham is paying approximately 15 cents a kilowatt hour. A developer that's financially qualified to design and construct a system could well indeed sell power back to the town for a much lower rate. It is 10 cents, certainly, possibly much lower than that. The key factors in assessing a viable partner for projects such as these, because of the economics, is the financial capacity of the proposer, the developer, to deliver. The root cause of instability and uncertainty in the renewable space, and most importantly in the solar space, is that developers have the entrepreneurial spirit of the developers. They have every intent and the technical expertise to develop projects. They respond to public requests for proposals, or RFQs, have every intent of building a project, but when it comes to the financial attributes, they go to the institutional investors and they don't have the financing in place. So that's just the one major component that I would stress that you seriously consider if you decide to move forward with a power purchase agreement. Here's 6 Tony's Lane. So in considering this layout, we took an assessment of the available open space that was unobstructed by shading, and obviously there's a terrific buffer between the community and the treatment plant. We sized the project for approximately 1.3 megawatts, and you can anticipate a first year power production in the first year of 1.6 million kilowatt hours. So if you were to do a financial analysis of what you're paying currently, and a power purchase agreement comes in increments of 12, 10, 8, and 6 cents, you could see what the financial impact would be for the treatment plant itself and the community. The design is certainly a very important component. You could certainly size the system for a much larger output, but the production and the efficiency of the array would be to the system's detriment in terms of optimal production. So again, it's a 1.3 megawatt system. The economic impact is certainly one well worth considering, but as well as the educational component. In speaking with Guy and what his vision would be for a project such as this, is you have a lot of surrounding municipalities, tremendous amount of students, as well as this is a growth industry that will be driving, you know, future generations in the trades. And you've got some local colleges, local schools, local technical schools that could certainly come to the treatment plant and see an operational solar plant. Do you have any questions about the array itself or the technical questions? Typically, with a ground-driven system, you're going in the earth 48 to 72 inches. You're coming off the ground 2.5 to 3 feet. For this application, it's primarily ballasted, so you would see concrete blocks that would have the same bandwidth, approximately 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet off the ground. There are certainly a lot of options. There are dual-axis trackers, single-axis trackers, and fixed tilt systems. This is for a fixed tilt array, which in the geographical climate of the Northeast, the operation and maintenance of a field such as this, although you get a higher production output, the risks with doing a single-axis or dual-axis tracker is the longevity of the system and the potential cost impact. So it could be, if you were to procure if you were to put out an RFP or an RFQ, the developers could do an analysis of multiple types of technologies, but the one that's represented here in the presentation is a fixed tilt system.
When the power is generated, you're going to have a switching station on the facility?
Yes.
And the power is going to go back into the grid?
The intent of this project, I would highly recommend that it be interconnected with the facility itself, net metered.
And the excess that goes out, whatever the water pollution control facility does not need, that goes back into the grid, or that goes back to the town somehow?
Correct. So with a net metered system, there are going to be times where the system itself is producing more power than the treatment plant is consuming. But what is filled out by the developer is what's called a Schedule Z, where the power produced by the system is allocated to accounts within the treatment plant. So the net result over an annual basis is if you're generating 1.6 million kilowatt hours, those 1.6 million kilowatt hours are being credited to
the plant.
The accounts, the metered accounts, the plant. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Guy, what is our consumption now at the plant? Do you know how many kilowatt we use?
About 1.9.
Right now?
Yes. Also, the ballast system opposed to drilling in the ground was something recommended by the Department of Environmental Protection, because that field is lined, it has a drainage system, and if the town ever needed to go back to sludge, if we went back to sludge and we needed someplace to put it, we'd preserve that to have at a later date. I don't see us ever going back to sludge, but if we ever did, it'll be preserved for that reason.
I guess in your role at Siemens, you know, we have others who are sort of chasing us down with these types of proposals. So let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
If a place like Plymouth, you know, they have some energy up in Plymouth, right? And they're knocking on our door to try to get us to buy that power.
Sure.
We could actually do the same thing on our end by doing something like this at the plant. So if we get up to, well, if you get to 1.6 and he uses 1.9 and then we generate some other activity, then we could re-meter this back through any town building. Is that not correct?
That is correct. That's predicated on the methodology of the town's procurement. So if it were to include not only the wastewater treatment plant but other municipal buildings, that power could be credited to multiple accounts.
So we could say that, you know, we could power the plant and then add on to that, say, town hall.
Absolutely.
Or the multi-service center. And so that at some point over time, if we expand these things, these types of things, we could really become energy dependent by ourselves, correct, with these types of projects?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would add to that the water pollution control, I believe, has six properties under its purview that consume approximately, what, 2.6 or 7 megawatts per annum. And there is there is ability to expand, although it's tough as a, someone who truly believes in renewable energy and sustainability. One of the attributes is the environmental impact, and we're saving trees, not cutting them down. So
Right.
when you do a cost-benefit analysis with the geographical footprint of this plant, you could certainly consider clearing some additional land and adding modules. There's acreage available. If you look to if this sheet represents north, we've got some delineation along some of the wooded area for potential additional areas to be considered.
I just spent the last couple of months getting sick of watching trees cut down. Let's not talk about cutting trees down.
Absolutely.
We just witnessed that in another part of town, so there's no need to go there. Mrs. Begley, you have any questions or comments? Mrs. Winslow?
And in terms of environmental impact, economic impact for developing systems within the municipality as opposed to procuring on the utility network in an adjacent town, the economic impact of the permitting costs and the taxable entity on site, there are greater economic benefits to the town than if they were to purchase that power at an adjacent from an adjacent municipality. This is a generic snapshot of a municipal customer that is consuming that takes in approximately 1.2 million kilowatt hours per year. When they're paying in the right-hand column the unit cost. If you look at the bottom right, their blended rate is about 19 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you were to take that same electric value and put it into a 12-cent PPA, it's the same electrical usage over the same period of time, assuming that usage, purchasing the power for 12 cents a kilowatt hour, that first year savings represents approximately $86,500. And again, keep in mind, I represented a number of 12 cents. I would say it's fairly safe to say that the town of Wareham with this particular project would see a greater cost savings than the 12 cents represented here.
Hey, Mr. Campina, we have a blended rate currently of about 15 cents. Is that accurate? Or close?
15 cents blended. Yes, you're correct. About 15 cents blended. And this project represents just a treatment plant. We're not talking about any of our pump stations, any of our 45 pump stations. So it's just a treatment plant, and the blended is about 15 cents. We have different rates throughout the day in different parts of the plant, but 15 cents.
Was the 1.9 total, Guy?
No, the total is 2.6, 2.7 with the pump stations, but we're not including the pump stations in this project.
Okay. So the 1.9 was just for the plant.
Yes, we
Correct.
talked about
No
approximately
pump
for the plant.
stations.
No pump stations.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, one of the benefits to the municipality is the educational component, and a part of these projects are data acquisition systems where you can actually see what the environmental impact and what the production of the field is actually doing. So I put together a snapshot of what the environmental impact would be of a 1.3 megawatt photovoltaic site sited in on Tony's Lane. So when you look at the greenhouse gas emissions, you're looking at taking off approximately 176 vehicles from the road. The emissions from over 100,000 gallons of gasoline, and you can certainly go down the list and see that it's not just the economics, but the environment is certainly impacted by a project of this nature. Some examples of some ground-mounted systems. This project is approximately 1.8 megawatts, sited in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, not too far from here. Ground-mounted, ground-driven system. As a student at Northeastern, I wrote all my public policy papers about my hometown of Brockton Brightfield. So wrote about this project for a few years, was fortunate enough to work with a development team that designed and constructed the field after having worked for the state for a few years. So it's one of the first projects of this magnitude in the country. It's 1,300. It was originally 1,395 300-watt solar modules designed and constructed on a brownfield. Similar to a wastewater treatment plant, these sites are non-developable. They're cash negative assets that drive no growth for the municipality. So when this project certainly had a great impact on Brockton. You see the solar learning pavilion behind that retaining wall, and it's been a great win for the city of Brockton and the surrounding municipalities. So just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what large ground-mounted local solar developments have done for other municipalities.
How many acres was that project?
Approximately 3.6 acres. There was an easement. If you look to the right center of the
Yes.
you'll see that row. So there was a change order issued that it added 117 modules, so it topped off at 1,512. But the only reason that array is not full to capacity is the easement for a pipeline underneath the ground. So again, in closing, it's truly am excited about the project, the potential project, for what it could do for the town of Wareham, for the 3Es, and it's a win-win for the community. And please consider me a resource if you have any questions after this meeting, and
Or during.
Or during.
Could we have the lights, please? All right, questions from the board, comments. We'll start with Mr. Slavin.
On the project itself, once the subsidies and all the grants and everything start to disappear, as these things have to basically sit on their own, will it affect us down the line, or will it be the dollar amounts locked in for a long period?
The partner that is chosen during this procurement is critical. Again, there are a lot of companies that have the technical expertise and the intent of providing a great system, but the financial component is certainly one that's risky in nature. There are companies that have balance sheet financing that can guarantee project development up front, mine included. There are also companies that will respond to a public procurement that don't have the depth and breadth of what it takes to offer a full turnkey system. So to answer your question directly, there's an investment tax credit.
Correct.
That is worth 30% of the capital cost to design and construct a system. Prior to December of 2011, there was a 30% cash grant in place. That is no longer available. So the tax appetite for the institutional investors has gone up a few notches, and that's causing some development hurdles for smaller companies that don't have the balance sheet financing. So that's one attribute. The solar renewable energy credits, the administration fully supports a 10-year solar REC program, which it fluctuates year to year. Currently, the RECs are trading at $520 a kilowatt hour. But if you look at a 10-year term, if you're going to sign a 10-year contract as a developer, there's a floor of $285 a megawatt hour that exists right now, but the marketplace is much less than that. So the floor is in fact a ceiling.
Okay.
Those are the two major components that I would highly recommend are vetted out during the procurement process if you decide to move forward. There's accelerated depreciation, there's book depreciation, there are other attributes with any capital investment that are also there. But there was a question during the wind study that is certainly an important one. What's the cost benefit of the town owning the system outright and developing it on its own versus a public-private partnership? It's the rate of return on investment. So a institutional developer, a Siemens, or a Constellation Energy that have the balance sheet financing can pay back these projects at a much greater rate than a municipality can. So the municipality, if it was to own the system outright, they would be looking at a 18-year return, rough numbers. It could be 14 years, but still, it's a pretty significant hurdle. For a institutional investor that's balance sheet financing a project with the current REC market, you could be 5 to 8 years, maybe even less, depending on what happens with the value of the RECs. So those are two differentiators.
Yes. Did you want to go next? I don't have any questions. I have a couple questions, actually, because
Sure.
and I certainly don't know the answers. What's the lifespan of the cells
The lifespan of the cells.
or
so
the solar fields?
The solar modules themselves are
Yes.
warranted for 25 years. Their expected life is 40 years. So that's a very important point. So when you're assessing potential developers for this project or others like it, the term of the power purchase agreement can be anywhere from 15 to 20 years. That's what you'll typically see. So decommissioning is obviously very important. If the town deems that it wants to own the system after a period of time, having some level, some mechanism to protect the town's interests for either decommissioning, or you could actually extend the term of the power purchase agreement itself. As technology gets better, as you know, solar, wind, all these technologies are getting better as the years go by. And you know, the cost to design and construct these systems, when the Brockton field was built, it was roughly $10 a watt to build a system like that. Or in this case, it would be about a $10 million project if it was 6 years ago. Today, it's less than a third of that. So that's, you know, so those are some of the mechanisms. But the decommissioning of the system, protecting the town's interests against the overall longevity of the system is certainly an important attribute to consider.
My other question is, what's the average cost of maintaining a solar field?
That's a very tough question. For a project such as this, a fixed tilt system as opposed to a dual axis tracker or a single axis tracker with the moving parts is much less. So if you were to go with a $20,000 a megawatt number, $20,000 to $30,000 a megawatt per annum, I would say would be a reasonable number. There will be developers that will tell you that is way too high, and there will be other developers that will tell you it's way too low. I feel it's just right. So it's my own opinion, but that's what I believe it to be.
And just one other question. Is there any special disposal for any of the system components?
Another great question. Cadmium. You will see modules that are developed outside of the U.S. with cadmium, which is a carcinogen. That causes special disposal costs. There are other non-cadmium-based modules that are out there. With that one exception, that's
Yeah, that's pretty much it for disposal.
So the cadmium is only a carcinogen if that material is disturbed? It's not an issue if the field remains undisturbed?
No, it's not an issue.
It's a non-issue?
It's a non-issue. It's a disposal issue. In my opinion, it's a disposal issue. If you were to, we're not procuring cadmium-based modules.
Okay. Because I'm thinking, you know, we're not living in a tornado belt like the poor Midwest,
No,
but we certainly have hurricanes here.
Yes.
And these are insured. I mean, if we had a field and there was a hurricane.
The mechanism for developers is business interruption insurance, force majeure acts of God. So you can meet, there are certain insurance companies that are geared specifically towards renewable energy projects. I would find one that specializes in solar energy. And there's a business interruption insurance mechanism available to developers, and that would be, if the town was to build a system, I would highly recommend that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Campino, what can we do to help you?
At this stage of the game, I think what I'd be asking for is to put the project out, develop an RFQ and put it out. Again, there are model RFQs. I would like to use alternative edit to keep the costs down. But I would like to move forward with solar also.
Is that the sample RFQ I saw late?
Yes, I sent you the RFQ. That was from the
house?
state. That was from the state, yes. You'll see all the blanks, fill in the blanks. You can run through that.
Okay. And you sent a copy of that to Mr. Bowen?
Yes, to Mr. Bowen, absolutely, because he'd be the guy that I would rely on to vet it and to look out for the town's best interest.
Mr. Chair, I definitely lean towards more, certainly green energy, but solar. But I would like to see that RFQ before it went out, even though it's being vetted.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And just a little bit more information about some of the questions that I had, Mr. Campina, and how that would add to any kind of cost or issues that need to be addressed. For example, make sure that they're cadmium-free solar panels.
Be in the RFQ.
In the RFQ, and I think that having those issues of the cost maintenance, have it written what they project the lifespan of the cells or solar fields are, disposal of system components, etc., would be helpful.
Yeah, he's not putting out an RFQ.
No, I'm saying that
I like
those are the
the
kinds of
together.
those are the elements that I would like to see in there.
And that'll come back before the sewer commissioners.
Absolutely, and that's, I rely on your expertise and your input, plus Mr. Bowen, and we can vet it out, see what's best interest of the town, then make a decision and put something out there. Absolutely.
Right.
That'd be what I would be looking for.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, I'm a big fan of solar myself. In fact, I've tried to stay kind of quiet because my brother installs solar panels, not in Massachusetts, out of state, but I like the idea, but I think we need to look at this on a town-wide basis and not just focused on the treatment plant, because we have schools that use a lot of energy. Our town hall's not what one might call energy efficient. And it seems like if we're going to embark on a project like this, that lady that came about the ESCO said that it just doesn't make sense to do one piece. I think this is a bigger conversation than making this decision right this moment.
I agree with you. The ESCO part of it is something we'd like to pursue also, get that out, to draft an RFQ to look at that. And you can also, in the ESCO, include in the RFQ solar and wind, or solar specifically. So yeah, absolutely. So if we draw all these things up, we have all this to go over, we can make some good decisions. So the idea is to just keep moving forward on the different components, and then get all the components to RFQ, and then we can sit down and vet all the components and see how I want to go. I had a meeting last week, speaking specifically to what you're talking about, the putting under the power, the solar, and the ESCO also. So we're thinking the same way. And then there's also metering to the town, because we have the land. There's 60 acres there, and we're using approximately 30. And the treatment plant will never get any bigger because we have a river issue, and the river is 1.5, and we're there. You know, so we're not going to. We can't. If we were going to expand the treatment plant, if the ability was to do that, then we wouldn't do something like this. So that's why it's a prime location, and we'd love to meter to the community. Absolutely.
Thank you. And I do appreciate Mrs. Winslow's comment. However, that's typically the problem with government. See, you know, everybody has to get involved, and we do nothing. And then 10 years from now, the next board will be sitting here, and there'll be somebody else sitting there, and they'll be talking about a solar panel, and your junior executives will be in here. And then, you know, it'll look great for the sewer plant, and then somebody will say, oh, you know, the whole town should look at it. Well, then 10 years after that, we'll all be sitting here, and nothing gets done. So I think that while I agree with her comment, and certainly this is, to me, is just the letter A in the alphabet. That's the way I see this. It's a baby step. But you have to put something forward. You have to put your foot forward before you can walk. And if you wait till you can run, you're never going to walk.
Well, I just, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, I think that it's green energy is a good idea. Solar fields are preferable to wind power because siting the turbines can oftentimes pose problems, especially in congested areas. They require a great deal of study. However, I don't think that we need to take forever about this. I think that what we need to do is we need to, you know, get the players in a room and talk about what their needs are. And if we're going to go out in an RFQ, then we include everybody's needs. You know.
Well, you know, and I see that happening. I'm not disagreeing with you.
We had this conversation
listen,
a year and a half ago. We sat at the table, all the managers, school department, every department in the town of Wareham, a year and a half ago. I just come on board. We had Seth Pickering here talking about green Wareham. We were very excited about it. We all agreed it's the right thing to do, including the school, sewer, the biggest users, town hall. We all talked about this. We're still talking. And we were supposed to, a year and a half ago, develop a energy committee. specifically for green in Wareham. The building department was going to be involved, and I agree with you 100% because it should be a town effort. But if we can move things forward, and absolutely, the doors are always open. I'll talk to anybody. I'd love everybody to do it. I mean that sincerely, but we had this conversation a year and a half ago. I apologize that you weren't invited, and we should have invited the Board of Selectmen, but we didn't. But we had this conversation a year and a half ago. We've gone no place with it. So I'm just trying to.
And we are a policy board, by the way. And
Yes.
we can set that policy for the town. So we have the opportunity to do that on this side of the table.
And
So,
Mr. Chair,
we need to
I,
land the plane here.
well, the plane's landed as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we give this to Mr. Campina, and next week Mr. Gifford wants solar at his place, and we have somebody
That's fine.
else.
That's
And
a good thing.
well, that's
what
great.
that's what we're
We'll have 13 solar projects going at the same time.
That's fine. That's what we're trying to. That's what we're trying to get moving here. If you wait till you get 20, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen. So you take a step before you can walk. All right.
Yeah, but you get the better deal, like the lady said when she came to us, when you put together your actual needs and put it out an RFQ to cover the entire town.
I'm not in favor of putting up a stop sign here. And by tying that to all town agencies, to me, that's just what government's all about, and we don't need that here. We need to work on these projects and push these things forward and encourage department heads to get with Mr. Campina. Now, how did you do it? How did you do it? And bring everybody together and start to move forward. But if you wait for everybody to walk at the same time, again, 10 years from now, there'll be a board sitting here discussing the first RFQ. That's my opinion.
And
That's
you're
just my
entitled.
opinion. But we're not here to hold things up. We need to stop moving things in a direction. So I think this is a very good project that you gentlemen are working on. Mr. Slavin?
To make life a little bit easier, Carver is in the process of doing solar along highways, which is all free land. Also, AD Makepeace is in the process of probably the largest site East Coast of 40 acres. So rather than reinventing the wheel, I'm sure if you reached out, you could save yourself a lot of time and effort.
We have. I've talked to AD Makepeace and other facilities for ideas because, again, there is no sense of reinventing the wheel, and I certainly don't have all the expertise needed. So I'm reaching out to those that have done it, that are doing it, and hopefully they can give me some guidance. The water department's looking at one. I think they're up to RFQ. So I'm asking everybody for help because I'd like to get this done. It's a win-win for the community. It's my ratepayers. If I can keep the rates down, it's a major accomplishment. So we are asking everybody, and your input's well taken. We are asking everybody. I want everybody's help. I can't do it alone.
When will you have that back for the board to review?
I can't answer that right now, but I'll email an answer in the next couple of days because I'll sit down and see what the process is. I would mislead you if I gave you a date now, and so I'd rather not do that. But I'll get back next couple of days, email the board, and give you an idea of what we're looking for time before you can review what we're putting in and go from there. But we've got a town meeting coming up. I don't want to put any added pressure, so I'll put that all in also as part of the consideration.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I had to step out. Was there a motion made?
No.
Well, you know, Mr. Campina, I personally would like to see a motion and see, even if it's a draft RFQ, come before this board no later than June 1st.
Got it.
Because I agree with
Is that a
Chairman
motion?
Holmes. Well, yes, I'm going to...
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Slavin. Anything
Thank you.
else on the question? What was the date?
June 1st.
No later than.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
anything
you.
else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
3, 1, abstain, 0. There you go. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. It was very educational. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Mr. Campina, if you could hold fast for a minute.
Absolutely.
Stand fast for a minute. There you go.
I'll get some things.
Next up on the list is we've been talking for the last several months about policies and procedures in the Board of Selectmen, the liquor, and the wastewater plant. And so the purpose of item C The purpose of item C tonight on the agenda is to set a timeline with Mr. Campina so that the book of sewer bylaws, rules, policies, and procedures has been redone. The rules of the game and updated totally. If there's anything new that needs to be added, we'll do that. Anything old that needs to be updated, we'll do that as well. Here are the rules that, just as we did tonight with these other projects, that the board will have 1 week to review the policies that are coming up the following week. So Mr. Campina will be working on getting all those policies before the board. If he fails to give us a policy on the 1st, the meeting will, that policy will not be covered on the 8th, but it'll be moved to the 15th. I'm using general dates here. So that is the rule, that he will provide policies prior to Tuesday, and then the board would have 1 week before coming here, do your homework, do your research before coming here for a discussion on the policy, and hopefully some approvals. Now, the timeline, Mr. Campina, that's the issue tonight, is to discuss a timeline and when we can complete this project.
There's quite a bit. Let me sit down tomorrow and go over all I have, but what I'd like to do is, what I'd actually like to do is get an intern from Bridgewater State or a surrounding community college, or college in general, and have an intern go through all the minutes of the sewer since 72, 73, and I'll explain that in a second, and pull all these policies out. And why I'm saying that is specifically, and you can make a decision next week, if you look at the policy here written, I believe it was in 1997, and this has become an issue to us recently. And it says there that the Board of Selectmen designated the plumbing inspector as its agent for the purpose of issuing sewer connection permits and inspecting the completed work of the licensed drain layers who connect homes and business to the sewer laterals. We've been doing it. We do it all. The plumbing department, when I went to Miles Burke when I first saw this, he doesn't have the manpower. Impossible to do. He's got a part-time plumbing inspector. This, for whatever reason, this was done in 1997. So technically, I'm under this bylaw or this policy, and we have to step away, technically. But we've been doing it because it was passed over back to us. So the reason why I gave you this.
Well, that's the whole point. That's
Absolutely.
the whole point of reviewing and updating these policies and procedures across the board, so that we have policies and procedures that make sense in the year 2012.
Correct. And there's some that I'm not aware of because I'm digging myself, and that's why I suggested what I'm aware of, I'll come every week with at least 2, because I don't want to overwhelm, but at least 2. We can go over it in the following week, and we can continue to make changes and work towards
Because
that.
you're not the only one who's doing this.
No,
So
I understand
we
that.
have other sets
That's-
of policies and procedures that we're going to do.
Okay.
And so if you can get a couple put together every week, right?
Yes.
Then you can. We just went through this a few seconds ago. My interest is not in waiting for some intern. I mean, if you get that and you do that, that's fine.
Right,
But in
exactly.
the meanwhile, you're coming here as you're doing them at least a couple at a time.
Mr. Chair,
Right?
could Mr. Campina, it's kind of similar to, they redid all the policies at the police station, and the chief and Officer Philman would submit their policies to this board well in advance of it being on the agenda. So I would hope.
That's the rule.
But I would
It's a
hope.
week. But you want more than a week? It's just.
But I don't. Right. But I don't. Please don't be bringing them and asking us to make a decision.
No, this is for next
no.
week.
That
What you have in front of you is for next week, and what the way it was going to work is you can talk about these next week, and we'll talk about decision. Next week you'll have 2 more that we won't talk about till the following week. So I'm a week ahead of you. So these you can take home, you can read them, vet them, think about them, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And then next week we'll do discussion on these and make some decisions, and I'll give you 2 more, and we'll continue to do that until we get to where we need to be.
Absolutely correct. And you can pick and choose.
Right.
By priority, we would expect you to prioritize that.
Yes, absolutely.
I would
Do my very
ask
best.
if there's a member of the board who would like to volunteer to work with Mr. Campina and organize this with the board. Be like I am with the appointments. I'd like to have a sewer plant, sewer sewer bylaw coordinator. How's
I wouldn't
that?
mind doing it.
Would you
but
do that?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mrs. Begley.
If you
It'd be
wouldn't
great,
mind, Mr.
appreciate,
Campino.
I wouldn't mind at all, it'd be a
Are-
blessing, and you can
And
help
again,
me out
you know the
and,
rule that
get
we
us
get them
going.
ahead of time, right?
Is this
So
all
that
of
we
them?
have time to go through.
that you
That's all
s-
that I'm aware of, and that's why I wanted, the intern was not to work with what we have, because sometimes I find one in old documents that aren't in that come forward, like the one on the 97. I just found that about a month ago.
But this
So
is,
everything I have, I gathered everything up, and that's what you have, total
but
of everything.
this is the ones that were written on the pollution control facility letterhead, because we found out that those, when they were approved by the sewer commissioners or with your predecessor, that sometimes that's where they ended up,
Yes.
not on the Board of Selectmen letterhead. So this is both,
That's right. And we don't,
to your knowledge.
to my knowledge, I don't know who drove it, whether it came from the sewer department as a suggestion to the board, I have no idea. And that's why if I had someone, and that's the second part of that was, have somebody go over the minutes. The minutes become, they're there, and just have them review the minutes, pull all those policies out while we're doing this. And
Right.
so there may be more that we're not aware of,
And
and
the
we
key-
can probably identify
Yeah,
them.
and the key is to make sure we keep it consistent. We
Yes,
keep
every-
bringing them in. We keep getting them done, and hopefully, you
Okay.
know, maybe by the fall. I don't know what the scope is, but maybe by the fall, by Christmas, we're done, right? And
Absolutely.
it would be a real nice thing to do.
Be a nice
We'll do it.
Christmas
And if you
present.
have something new, if there's something new, if it's just a revised thing, I think a week is fine.
Okay.
But if it's going to be a new policy that's brand new, and I think you should give us at least a couple of weeks on
Well,
those, so that
I'm
we
going to
have
rely on
time to-
Mrs. Bagley's judgment because she knows the board better than I, and she knows it's in front of you guys. So if we do a policy, she suggests, Guy, I may need a month for this, absolutely, because.
Happy we had this conversation.
Absolutely.
All right,
This is
listen.
what I
absolutely.
do, policies.
Let's
So this would
move
be
on.
great.
Let's move on.
Okay.
And the two of you can.
So this is
care of
policies
that.
for next week.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he brought two in tonight.
Two, actually, yeah, I brought three in tonight. One was the cell phone policy we need to address because.
These are going to be. We're going to discuss these
These
next
three.
week.
Correct.
These
Okay.
three.
For next, yeah, absolutely, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Other sewer business.
I'm all set. If
Well,
you're all
I'm
set.
not.
I know, that's what I figured out.
Mr. Slavin, you have anything? Other sewer business?
No, not
Mrs. Winslow? Mrs. Begley?
Yes, I do. What's going on
There's the same question.
with setting
figured.
the betterment?
We're real close. Let me tell you what's going on. We've done our training. I am waiting. Here's the deal. I could probably get, as soon as Mike gives me the numbers, we have one more issue with Narrows. The alarms are not working. Until the alarms are working, there's a cost issue between CDM, and it's not our issue. Don't misunderstand me. It's the CDM and their electrician. They'll fight it out. That's their business. But they have not signed off on anything until that's completed. So I'm pushing them. I have not received the numbers from the attorney. We need the numbers from the attorney. So I am hoping to have, I was hoping to have them last week. I'm hoping to have them this week. And as soon as I get them, we'll bring them to you folks and we can set it. So
March is long gone.
yes, and we're in the second
We're in
week of April. And we said about the second week of April, we're there.
Anything to do with malfunctioning equipment is not our dime.
No, and you're absolutely right. But again, once we accept it, so part of the betterment, we can set the betterment, we still have to accept the process. We haven't accepted those pump stations yet. As an example, right now we're debating who's paying electrical bills. They own them. As far as I'm concerned, we haven't accepted them. They're saying, no, they're not paying any more bills. We're paying the bills. I'm not paying the bills because I have not accepted them. This is part of that ongoing dialogue about where are we, and that's part of the setting the betterment. And so I pushed them all back to to GOCO. I've told CDM that we're not paying them. If GOCO refuses to pay them, then they're paying them because Wareham's not paying them. So that's part of the ongoing.
Mr. Campina, Mr. Chair, Mr. Campina, could you submit your punch list in the form of an email? Your punch list and
Absolutely.
any of these ongoing issues and send it to this board so that we will, as opposed to kind of bring this up under any other sewer business, that we'll know what the ongoing issues are so that when our constituents are asking us,
Well, this is going to be great because I got you for policies, and you'll be helping with this too, so it's not going to be a problem.
this isn't a policy.
No, we're going to the policy of health. So
No, because
I would love that because you need to see exactly what's going on.
But send us a punch
Okay.
list.
And you know, and we need to schedule very soon, Mr. Campino, another public hearing with the taxpayers coming soon.
Absolutely.
With a month that begins with the letter M. So I'm just telling you in
Okay.
advance. And we better have that number because we promised them we'd have it. We said we would wait so that we didn't estimate, and we'd give them the final answer. And the final answer comes now. So,
I don't have a problem with that. I'll fire off an email to Mr. Judici tomorrow.
and if there's
to
anything you need
Mr.,
from us
to
to
Tom.
make that happen, you
Yes.
just let us know. You're here every Tuesday. Let us know what we can do to make that happen as sewer commissioners.
Absolutely. And
But
I'll-
we need to get this done.
Okay, I'll send
Please.
everything out to the attorney, to the engineers. We'll get all the updated information we have. And I've walked the neighborhoods. I've got the maps with me, and I just finally got the red line actual installation, so we're very close to completing that for our work. So we're moving right along, and I'll force a bad word, but I'll really compel CDM and Mr. Deshays, our attorney, to get us this information.
Could you
Thank you
send us
very
that
much.
email tomorrow or by Thursday at the very
Yes.
latest, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was a very educational evening. Thank you for putting all that together.
Thank
And
you for your,
have a wonderful night.
Thank you for everything.
All
I
right.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Mrs. Winslow?
Next up, we have closed the special town meeting warrant. So I make a motion that we close the warrant for the Town of Wareham special town meeting, which is scheduled to commence on May 21st, 2012 at 7:30 p.m. in the Wareham High School Auditorium, Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 400.
Mr. Chair, we have, we have items B and C, which kind of go together. The discussion of the town administrator's job description and the interview process. And I actually had the opportunity, our town council, Attorney Bowen, his wife is an elected school committee member in their hometown who just went through this process with a superintendent. She was kind enough to spend a good deal of time with me on the phone to explain to me how they did it. So, briefly, they were able to hire a company to come in and assist them, and I know that we don't really have that luxury, so I just asked her for the structure. They had a screening committee, which is similar to how Wareham has gone about hiring this position in the past. That screening committee in that particular case was made up of 13 individuals who each had a stake in the superintendent's job. They went through, they reviewed the job description, posted the job, interviewed, narrowed down the qualified candidates, conducted the interviews, and they selected 3 finalists for the school committee to eventually interview and hire, with the theory being that any of those 3 finalists would be a great candidate no matter who was finally selected. She was really excited about the process and felt that they had
Excuse me. I know these items are on the agenda, and if I could just speak briefly, Steve.
I'm not sure what's your problem.
Well, I would just ask that these items, I mean, I was elected through no fault of my own. I'm not sitting up there with you.
No,
These are...
We're just discussing the issues. That's fine.
No, but they're, you know, to the extent that you're going to make any important policy decisions...
We're just discussing
Okay.
the process.
Because the C, I think, does call for some action to be taken by the board, if I'm reading that correctly.
No, I think we're just discussing.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Continues.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, she had been very excited, and then I talked to a few other people, and it does seem that this is the structure by which many communities are now hiring these positions. The Mass Municipal Association provides assistance and support through this process. So my suggestion for everybody to consider is putting together a screening committee that will review resumes and conduct interviews and select the final 3 who would then be interviewed in public by the Board of Selectmen per the open meeting law. She also, and I'll just throw this out there because it's still fresh in my mind, She also discussed some of the rules that the committee had, ground rules. One of them was the committee members had to agree to the schedule and everybody had to be in attendance. If you weren't in attendance, you lost the right to vote if you missed one of the interviews, which I thought was a fair rule. Another one of the rules was that no committee members could communicate with each other via phone, email, text, or any other way, shape, or form about the candidates. And they did use a weighting system, which wasn't quite a scoring system, but it was a system of highly interested, somewhat interested, not interested, definitely not. And that's how they voted on the candidates. So I'm hoping, and I do understand that we do have an elected selectman who's not sitting with us tonight, so I do believe this is one of the biggest decisions we're going to make over the next many months. So I would simply ask my colleagues to give some consideration to using a screening committee to filter out candidates. And, you know, I had made a list of some suggestions of people that I thought had a great deal of working with the town administrator, and I'll throw these out there for your consideration also. The chairman or a designee of the Board of Selectmen, the chairman or a designee of the school committee, the chairman or a designee of the finance committee, the town moderator. The next three that I'm going to list, we can't, these would be invitations, but these would be from the community: the president or designee of the Wareham Village Association, the president or a designee of the Onset Bay Association, town council, and 2 employee representatives. And we would choose those people by random drawing. People would submit their name to the office by a certain date, where we would simply draw them at random. That would put a total of 9 individuals. Once we create the committee, they'll have to meet within 10 days of their creation, and we'll have to submit a proposed job description. Obviously, we'd have to set a deadline to that to get it published. Now is actually a good time to be in this.
Could you type that up?
Yeah.
And maybe get it into the office, and then we could put that in everybody's packet.
Yep.
For discussion.
Yep. So that's where I was thinking maybe the best. It may be a little bit of a longer process in term of time, but I think it will produce better candidates, and I think it will also, no matter who the 3 are that we end up with sitting before us, they're going to be good, solid candidates.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Slaver. Any comments in this area?
I'd just like to see that we take our time a little bit on this, and if we have to stretch out the normal area, I'm hoping we don't do what the baseball teams do, they just retread managers back and forth, because this is a critical hire.
Mr. Begley, any comments?
Although it's certainly thinking outside of the box, I appreciated the fact that we had the screening committee for the CETA director that was ultimately hired by this board, and I would prefer, my personal opinion is to have the entire board represented and perhaps a couple more people, but I personally wouldn't care to be part of the process when the 3 finalists show up. I'd rather be part of the process in the beginning, since we are ultimately we're the supervisors, we're the hiring authority for the town administrator. So I'd like to be.
Where the buck stops.
I'd like to be part of the process from the beginning and be able to even see the initial applicants right from the start, as opposed to just seeing the 3 finalists.
Okay. You know, I've been thinking about this, obviously, in 35 years of management. And I look at it, it's a management position, a key management position in the town. I don't need a consultant. I don't need to pay somebody to fill a position. So, and obviously we don't have a lot of money to do that. I think that, you know, we bring a lot of experience. There is a lot of experience in the town that we certainly can work through a job description, work through getting that posted, work through having, I like the idea of a committee. We can come down to some kind of ingredients to that committee. But just remember, because I think that's inclusive of the community, similar to what we did with the senior person. And listen, there's 5 of us, or there will be 5 of us soon. Hey, we all can't make every single meeting. I mean, that's just what it is. So you make the ones you can make. But I think I like the idea of having some public input. The people will like that, and they'll feel that they were inclusive in the process. But when it comes down to the end, 4 out of 5 of us. And I know that, as I recall watching that night, it was 4 out of 5, and the 5th person made it unanimous. But 4 out of 5 of us have to say yes. So I'd like to see, typically what I see is every applicant gets an interview. Now that can get absurd depending on how many you have, but you know what? I've found many diamonds in the rough by giving everybody a chance at an interview, as opposed to cutting the numbers down just based on a piece of paper. So I wanted to just get this on the agenda so that we're discussing it. I really, was there anything in that job description that you reviewed that you had any ideas of changing? If there are, if you could just send those comments to Janet, and she will edit the one that we have so that we can keep all these comments piled. And I really do think it's important that, if it takes us another week or so to have a full board to do this, I have no problem doing that. We can certainly discuss it in the meantime on the agenda. But I think that getting it right is more important than getting it quick. But I don't agree with a process that is a 6-month process for this, and it doesn't take 6 months to hire a CEO. I know that. So, if there are no other comments, we'll move on to D. And it's almost that time of year. I wanted to put this on the agenda because every year in June, at least one of us has said for the last 2 years that she, so you know who I'm talking about, Mrs. Winslow, didn't always appreciate the reappointment process that we use. And so here we are in April. We're going to have a ton of people coming up in June, and I wanted to get the board's feelings on what the process is you want to use this year to do these reappointments in June. I'll start with Mrs. Bedwood. You thought I was going that way again, right?
I did. You looked to your left.
You know what? I go to my deaf side first.
You go to my deaf side. Alan, you're on his deaf side.
That's my deaf side.
So,
and he talks soft too. That's not going to work.
So
you might have to switch to this side.
I guess I have a few questions. Is it just kind of an automatic, if someone's been on a board for years and years and years, that they just express the fact they'd like to stay on the board?
Yeah.
Or is this something that we can even ask those people to come in and say, where have you been on the board? Where do you see it going? Why do you still want to be a part of the process? Just to kind of have a conversation as opposed to, yes, please reappoint me.
Having been the coordinator for the last 18 months, I can tell you that we put out the notice to the boards. They all know pretty much when their assignments are expiring.
Yeah, everybody in June, pretty
And
much.
then we say to them, if you're interested, send an email. They all send those emails into Janet.
Right.
Right? And then Janet lets me know that she got the emails, and I think she shared most of those with all the board members. So, and then we get the list, and it says, Ellen Begley, the Clock Commission, June 30th, she's interested in renewing. And
Right.
it comes in here.
So we just.
And we don't bring you in.
So we just wrote. So that's what we'll just continue that process. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's why it's on the agenda tonight, because Mrs. Winslow has expressed the 2 years I've been sitting here a displeasure with that policy or process. So it's up to the board. But here's the thing: you can't wait until June and then say to me, hey, Steve, we want to review some of this because it's too late.
We'd
because then
have
you
to
2
start
weeks to do 100
sometime,
people.
like by the end of this month, truly. I mean, it's a lot of people.
That's good, it's a lot of people, yeah.
It's a lot of people.
And that's why I'm asking now, before we get there, then have issues.
Do you want me to talk about my issues? Well, not
That's
all
why
my
it's here.
issues, just my issues related to this. We'd be here all night.
We have legal help here, not psychiatric.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, my first issue is that while it's not often, from time to time we have a number of people who apply to boards and committees, and because we have this unwritten policy of reappointing people, those folks never really get a fair chance at a space on a committee. And that's not to suggest that I don't appreciate the valuable service of the volunteers that we have, but I don't think that it's a bad thing for us to look at. This is an opening that's been created, kind of like our seats come up every few years, and we have to, you know, talk to the public about why we want to sit here. I think that I don't think it's a bad thing for when we have, I don't want to say the word contested seats, but when we have a number of applicants for the same seat, for us to consider all of our options. It's not a reflection on the quality of work of the volunteers or a lack of appreciation for what they do. I simply think that within the community there's a feeling that there's no point in applying for committees that are full because we're just going to rubber stamp the reappointments and they don't have a fair shot at them. I want to give everybody a fair shot when there are openings on boards and committees. And I also am going to ask again, because this became an issue last year with one committee member, can we please redo the committee application to include the question, are you a U.S. citizen? So I don't have to ask it every
We have
time.
you.
Yeah, I know, but what if I'm not here?
Mr. Titlebaum can take over for you. So if I'm hearing that, and I'm going to try to bubble it, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of what I'm hearing, that we put out a notice now that says in June, effective July 1, the following seats are open on boards and commissions. Put it out to the public. And then if people come in for those seats, then we would have interviews, just like we do the regular process.
Even with the person, Mrs. Winslow, even with the person that currently holds the seat?
If they want to reapply, you know, if they're interested in reappointment, then they would come in for an interview, just like everybody else. And that's not to suggest that I want to see, you know, I'm looking to get rid of everybody that's on. I just want to give everybody a fair shake.
Mr. Slavin?
You're going to find that on certain committees, you have people that have long history, and if you have to set some parameters of how you're going to do this, simply because you're going to have people who, if you remove them from a committee because they say they've been there for 4 terms even, you lose that history and causes problems. So you're going to have to set some parameters of how you're going to list this out. It's not a simple decision.
And I'm not suggesting, just to clarify through you, Mr. Chair, that this is a way to remove people from committees.
It's not that.
I just want to, I think that if I go and apply for a committee because I'm interested in serving, and I don't get any phone call or anything because the person that's sitting there, who may not have shown up for a meeting for the last 2 years, just gets rubber stamped. That's all I'm suggesting.
I think that given the flow and the volume of volunteers we
don't
have,
worry.
it's not going to be a big issue.
I don't
There
think
might
so
be
either.
a few instances where we'd have this happen, but I don't think it's going to be big. I hope someday it'll be a real problem for a board sitting here. But is that what I'm understanding? Is that what the idea is?
The idea is that I think everybody deserves a chance at seats on boards and committees. And they, you know, when we appoint somebody, we expect them to be there for the time allotted. It's not like those seats come up.
Well,
Do you want to, should we have an established policy on that?
well, on the other hand, what about, and I kind of jotted this, what about the people that have been and want to be reappointed
Right.
and have very poor attendance?
But that's one of the things that we can consider.
That's my point.
Yeah,
So
and
there are
it's
more
a
than,
way.
there's more than one issue.
Right.
We don't want to be too punitive because then
No,
we won't have any members.
But I'm not saying be punitive.
Right.
I'm saying have a conversation. I don't, Like, for example,
They don't,
that,
do they actually take attendance?
Yes.
well, no,
Probably
it's,
do,
it's,
right?
it's quite, well, you have to have a quorum, and it's quite obvious when a member or two get appointed and then you never see them again. I mean, that's rare, but happens.
Right.
But my other question is this.
Because if they're not there for 3 consecutive months, we've had some issues where chairmen have come in committees
Well,
and
only
said,
if we're notified
hey,
by the
get rid
chairman.
of Steve because he hasn't showed up, right?
Exactly. How many
We've had
times
it-
that
we've
happened to
had
you,
some of
Steve?
that.
So, Mike, I agree with Mrs. Winslow that people should be given the opportunity,
go.
but at the same time, we have to be cautious, because there may be someone, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, issues that Alan raises and that that Kara raises that I think we have to be sensitive to what's going on in the committees. So we have to be respectful, but
All right, so step 1 will be to put out the notice of all those
Yep.
positions, and then well, I'll keep this up so that we can talk about it over the next couple. We got a meeting Monday, Tuesday, we can kick it around a little bit
well,
more.
the other thing is, Mr. Chair, I wonder if the policies that we do have, and I think that you're right, they do need to be rewritten. If they, as people come, they should either go to the chair, they should go to the chair anyway, the chair of each committee. But as people come on board as new committee members, they should have a copy of the boards and committees policy,
Sure.
and the recording policy.
Agree.
And the other thing that I've noticed from attending some meetings is they don't always have a consistent chair and or clerk.
So Janet, if we could get a list of committees and vacancies that are coming up or renewable terms on June 30th, please. Thank you. All right, we'll get that as the first step. Item E.
Item E.
This is, I put this on the agenda because, you know, we're no different than anybody else. We have a policy book that is scary. I think over the last 2 years I've been sitting here, I did one, I think Kara did one, Mrs. Begley did one or two. And the goal for us is to A to Z. So I'd like a volunteer to manage that timeline. Mr. Slavin, thank you very much.
You can use 2 people.
That's for the selectmen.
You can do 2.
Well, Mr. Chair.
She wants
No,
to-
actually, no, hang on. That's for the selectmen policy book we're talking about.
Correct.
Secondly, as the Board of Selectmen, we have the liquor policies specific to liquor and licensing.
Mr. Chair,
I'm looking for a volunteer for that.
those are done. Attorney Bowen did them for us.
No. Attorney Bowen gave us suggestions.
Right, he
Those
wrote
need
them.
to be taken, reviewed, vetted before this board, and the board needs to accept them.
Right, I
So that's a
understand that.
separate group.
And the other thing is that Mr. Bowen, Attorney Bowen had also brought some of the selectmen policies to my attention.
That's
So
okay. You want to combine it?
I have drafts.
You want to combine
From
it?
him.
Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm just saying that I wanted you to be aware that it's something that I've been working on.
Okay, well, they haven't come here, so we need to get them here. So is it, you want to work together on it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Slavin?
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
And we'll expect, and again, the, oh no, there's a list.
Leave stuff
I
for
have a list.
Mr. Titlebaum.
I have a list.
Oh, no.
He'll be your partner on the SOAR
Don't
policies.
worry, I have a
There's
list.
going to be other things.
These
Don't
are
worry.
just volunteers. You see how people volunteer? It's very nice. Thank you all so much for volunteering.
I
now,
had my
again,
hand up first.
the same rules apply to us as to others, that if you want something voted on and discussed, you have to get it to the board a week in advance. Okay? So
Well-
the first order of business should be, like Mr. Campiner and Mrs. Begley, to develop a timeline for completion so that we can set targets and goals and get it done. Because if we don't do that, it's not going to happen.
Correct. And I do have a couple of the drafts. I will connect with Mr. Slavin so he can review them and we'll get them put in
Don't
an
worry, I
order.
have another list. I have several lists.
Item F, any other town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to the posting of this meeting?
I have a question only because I didn't know kind of where to put it in the agenda. And I'm just wondering, for my own information, when we we kind of already discussed the, or we reviewed, and we're going to have a future discussion of the town administrator's job description. I just had a question about educational qualifications.
Yep.
And is that something that we're going to discuss in the future? And I was just,
Well, I mean, it would be part of that whole qualification sheet and job post.
Okay. And
Job
my,
description and post.
well, my question is this. I was just, because I don't know the answer to this, and I know that Mr. Foster had been a town administrator, acting or interim town administrator previously, but I was just wondering what his educational qualifications were.
I don't know.
John doesn't have the degree you're looking for, but he has the experience, which when we go through the requirements, we may
But
weight them
that
a little
doesn't answer
differently.
my question. What are his educational qualifications?
I don't know.
Can someone let me know by next week?
Sure.
You could ask him.
Sure. Well, I'll probably, well, I won't see him till a week from Thursday, but thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
We have liaison reports. And
Board of Health has a public hearing for the nitrogen regulations tomorrow night at 7 p.m.
Jay will be there.
Yes. Well, I hope so.
Jay, he will.
And it's
I
on the
got notice of that
website.
today, and he got a copy of the, what is it, a regulation or?
Nitrogen regulations.
He got a copy of that.
It's on the website, but please do not go there at 4 p.m. for a regular Board of Health meeting because they are not having one.
Where is
So,
the meeting, Mrs. Bagley?
Over at the middle school.
7 o'clock.
I said 7. Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
You're welcome.
Did you say 7 p.m.?
7 p.m.
Okay. Anything else?
the Library Board of Trustees meets this Thursday for those of you who are interested over at the library. It's always very fun and exciting, and I encourage people to attend.
I can't because we haven't assigned committees yet.
Right.
Oh, was that not on the list? Oh, I think, no, you know what? I think I have that on for Monday.
We
You
have
should
to wait
until
for
Peter is on also.
That's why it's not on the agenda. I have that.
Mr. Titlebaum.
Yes.
I have that coming up. I
So,
think it's
Mr.
next
Chair,
week.
if you have
Oh,
no...
for advance notice, right now, we have Monday and Tuesday a town meeting. One day involved the continuation of the license hearing from last week, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, because they have the special meeting
because they were
tomorrow.
going to the planning board. So, right now, I would ask you to plan on 5:30 on Monday and 5:30 on Tuesday.
Okay.
If
Here,
in this room.
in this room.
That's correct.
That we're in right now.
Because 5:30 on Tuesday, I can tell you right now, we expect to have an executive session on legal updates.
At 5:30 on
5:30
Tuesday.
on Tuesday.
So
here.
5:30 on Monday here is
Here.
a public session,
Correct?
and 5:30 on Tuesday is executive session.
Is a public session as well. We're
Well,
going to be
I
going into
understand, but we'll
executive
be going
session
into
at
executive.
5:30, and then we'll be coming back right after that.
Okay.
Now, there are two caveats there. And one is, on Tuesday, if our fellow board member is not in office, we will meet at 6 o'clock. Right? We might just meet at 5:30, but there will be no executive at that point. Because I don't want to have town council have to do that whole thing twice. Okay? Is that
Mr. Chair.
acceptable?
Yeah.
And then Monday, and this is a question, on Monday, if the applicant does not have a final site plan, then we would just meet to continue the hearing to a future date, because we can't finish that hearing until that site plan is completed. Correct? Is that correct? That's a question.
No, you can go ahead and do a liquor license if you want. The site plan just sets certain parameters. So if you set conditions, it may interfere with what the
Right.
what they
So
do.
it doesn't make sense if we're going to set conditions.
But the applicant wants his liquor license, first, though.
One of the things we talked about was having that site plan completed. So,
Right. And the fence.
Just
you
for
know, so the agenda, right now, we have two meetings. I just wanted to give you a heads up for next week, posted both at 5:30 here,
And
Monday, Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, perhaps you could send an email to the board or communicate with me, and I'll send an email to the board about the final schedule by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
we have the meetings posted right now. Shirley's getting ready to post them, but, you know, the agenda might have to be a little
Right.
more flexible towards the end of the week, just so.
Okay.
There might be a scheduling problem for notice on the planning board's meeting for tomorrow,
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
just to let you know.
That's not our notice.
No, it's not.
I'm only concerned about the Board of Selectmen notices and postings. I don't want any trouble. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Please make sure that you all sign the documents.
Motion to adjourn?
Second again.
Motion to adjourn, made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.